All right, hey guys, what is up? Hey, we are live. This is the movie discussion pocket dimension where time does not exist and the only thing that matters is film. I'm Cole, joined by Jay with his cool new haircut, or at least it seems new to me because I haven't seen him in a while. Actually, my hair's getting so thick and heavy lately that I don't know. I don't know why I keep putting it off. It's really time, but then I think it's the coldest time of year. It's good to have this much hair, so I don't know.
That's true.
I'll let it go a little longer, but I know I'm gonna annoy people throughout this show. I'm gonna be like brushing hair out of my eyes the whole time, like an idiot. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, we missed last week, but it feels like we've been off forever for some reason. I don't know. I feel like we haven't done this in forever. So, as I said, hopefully we'll get some more consistency going and not have these gaps. Because I've missed it. I've missed being on air and I've missed being able to talk to you and anybody else watching and stuff. So that's good. Before we get into the show, which is going to be Tekkonkinkreet, anime from 2006 based on the manga of the same name from 93, 94. I was just thinking like, last episode was our first of 2020 or whatever, but I just thought like we don't have to like make a big deal out of it, but I'm just trying to think of like reflecting on not the decade, but just the year like 2019. I'm trying to think like what were the movies that I liked in 2019. And originally I thought, oh, well, I haven't really seen that many, but I've seen more than I thought. Although that comes down to, like, not necessarily all being movies I saw in theater, right? Like, some of them, like, were Netflix releases or whatever, or straight to DVD or something like that. So if you count that stuff, I did see a fair amount of stuff from 2019. I mean, I hate to say that, like, my favorite movie was just, like, a big popular box office smash, but I mean, probably Avengers Endgame is my favorite movie of 2019. I mean, I was really happy and satisfied with it. It's not perfect, but I don't know. I like the MCU. I like those movies, and it's a somewhat satisfying end to that like era, and now we're moving on. So I like it.
Yeah, you don't have to defend why you like that movie. I mean, it was that's like number one on lots of people's lists.
Sure, yeah. That's true. I guess, I mean, the main reason I like it is the same reason I liked the one before. It is, like, these movies have come a long way, and so have I. Because, if we go back 20 years or whatever, I was just very frustrated with any attempt to make, like, superhero. I'm not going to say comic book. I mean superhero like Marvel and DC. I was very frustrated with these because I was tired of, like, holding the audience's hand and explaining everything to them. Like, I wanted them to just, like, take a graphic novel and say, boom, film this, boom.
Yeah.
And I realized, now over time I realized that you can't really do that. So these movies all have to take their time. They're introducing a new world, a new continuity, and all this stuff. And for the most part, they're pretty good. But what's great about Avengers Endgame and the movie before it, Avengers Infinity War, is that finally we're past all that. There's no more origin stories. There's no more characters meeting each other for the first time and their minds being blown. And there's no more isolation. Everybody's together. Everybody knows what's going on, and there's a big crazy thing to do. Because to me, that's what superhero comics are. They're big crazy things going on, and everybody's involved, and things like time travel and extra dimensions and stuff like that. That's all just sort of the norm. So I was happy, and I get it. You couldn't just start with that. You couldn't back in 2008 just do that. I understand, but it was very rewarding to finally see it all come together in that way. So. And I also have to understand that unlike the comics, which work in a floating timeline, these have actors and people that age. So they're actually going by like real years and stuff. And so doing that, things can't always stay the same and you have to move on. So what they've done is, they've moved on from some of these actors with Iron Man dying and Cap getting his weird alternate time retirement type thing and stuff like that. And I mean, that would never fly in the comics, but it works for what this is. So I'm excited about whatever the next phase will be. And as I said, there was some doubt for a while with the whole Spider-Man thing up in the air because it was like, oh, obviously Spider-Man, it's his time to shine. He's going to be like the number one guy now. And then like for a while it was like, no, Sony's not going to let them have him. And some weird dangling thread.
I'm actually looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that Black Widow movie, actually. I think it looks pretty good.
I haven't actually seen anything on it yet, but yeah, it seems okay. I'm glad they kept her. I mean, they killed her in the movie, so I don't know if this is a prequel or what. She's one of the people that dies in Endgame. But yeah, I've always liked Black Widow. I'm not sold Scarlett Johansson as the character, but I don't think she's bad. Like, before anybody misunderstands, like, no, I don't think she's bad. But I mean, it seemed like it was more like, you know, she was more of an obvious choice for box office appeal reasons, and that's fine, I guess. To me, the great tragedy of the Black Widow in the Marvel U, as like, or the Marvel MCU or whatever, like it is that like her relationship with here's a good shot of it, is her relationship with Daredevil is such a great thing in the comics, and we don't get to, that's not used or explored in either the Netflix series Daredevil or the movies. It's like they had to be kept separate, and that seems like a huge missed opportunity. I realize that, I don't know, but I really like them together.
Do you think they'll ever explore that in a film, like bringing Daredevil into that world?
I don't know. I've never really understood where they stood with, like, I thought, you know, this Netflix series, the Daredevil series, is like the most perfect thing I've ever seen, and the other ones aren't as good, but they're still pretty good, right? Yeah. They're good. Like I think most people say that's a very good Punisher. Like, that guy, like, why can't he do a Punisher movie? Like, I don't know what, and stuff like that. And it was a bit annoying, as much as I like those Netflix shows, is like how little they did reference the MCU. They would say stuff like, a guy with a hammer, talking about, like, they'd say that Thor exists without even saying Thor's name, and then might say something about, like, the time that the first Avengers movie happened, right? The first alien invasion or whatever. They mentioned that kind of offhandedly, but besides that, and I remember we were talking to our friend Eric ages ago about this, and he always said, you know, it would have been so cool to see, like, for the opening of Avengers Infinity War, like when New York is getting attacked by Thanos' forces for the first time, that wouldn't have been great to see, like, Daredevil and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, like, on the streets dealing with it in their own sections of New York. Like how hard would that have been to do? I don't know, and I don't get it.
That's something he feels very strongly about.
Yeah, and I understand it.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe he should just buy the comics like I do.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I mean, you know, you don't like to have all these different universes around, knowing they're never going to, you know, join each other.
Yeah, and the whole point is that they are together.
And now they have the X-Men, so I think that's, what is this, the third level or whatever tier or whatever they're calling it?
I don't know. But yeah, I was going to say, there are some sort of, like, I was going to say, sort of dangling plot threads going forward, in that I don't know what universe they're supposed to be in. Because we've had a Venom movie that was just like its own standalone thing. But now they're saying Venom might very well tie into a Spider-Man movie, and there's a Morbius movie coming out, and they're saying they have some Spider-Man references in that, although I don't know. It's not like the actors in it, so that seems very muddled. So I don't know what's going on with that. And you know me, I hate all the X-Men movies. I think they're all garbage. Although I think First Class is actually not garbage. It's okay for what it is, but I think all the rest are crap. And I haven't even seen, like, the last two. I'm so disinterested in them. But the one that's been in limbo forever, the new Mutants movie, is finally getting released this year. Like, it was shot in, like, 2018. It was supposed to come out in, like, 2018. And it's been on the shelf, and they've changed things around and stuff. And people are still saying, like, there's some good stuff in there. So I'm interested in it. But at the same time, how much am I supposed to like it if it has nothing to do with anything else? But I don't know. People are still saying that it has real potential and promise. So, and I want to be open-minded about it. And it might be the first X-Men related movie I see in theater since The Last Stand, which is the last one I actually saw in theater. Or no, I did see First Class. I saw First Class in theater too. But as for, like, the others, there was an Apocalypse one. There was Days of Future Past, and then there were, like, two more that I didn't even watch.
Apocalypse was the last one, I think. Wasn't it?
No, they did Dark Phoenix, right?
Dark Phoenix, that's right. I haven't seen that one yet, but I do want to see that.
I've heard it's very disappointing and bad, like the rest. And it did very badly at the box office, too.
It's one of my favorite arcs of any comic.
It's amazing. And, like, and how they, like, kind of touched on it, like, this much in, the X-Men The Last Stand just makes you sick. So anyway, I don't know. It still seems like the Shi'ar are nowhere to be seen in this, so I don't know. I don't know how you do Dark Phoenix without them. Like, I don't even know if they're making it like a cosmic force, because that was the thing that was so annoying. But at Last Stand, right? It wasn't some crazy cosmic force or anything. It was just a weird suppressed personality of hers. Like, who cares? Like, so now you're just saying, like, Jean Grey without a cosmic force is this powerful. But okay, I know I'm getting really comic nerdy and stuff. But I mean, the fact is, she's a very powerful telepath and telekinetic. But she cannot do the crazy things the Phoenix can do without the Phoenix. Like the Phoenix can like warp reality and swallow planets and shit. But anyway, to back away from all that, I'm just trying to think of what the hell else I watched from that year. And I was going to say my second favorite movie is, the more hip, I guess, is Parasite. Parasite was really good.
That's one I've got to see. And
yeah.
Lighthouse, I haven't seen that either. Too, I'm really looking forward to.
I had like twice that fell through on me. Once I even bought a ticket for it and didn't get to it, so that was just money lost. But Parasite, and this is funny because it's going the other way. Because again, I am a big fan of things like the Marvel things and I guess Star Wars. But it always is refreshing to go into a movie that is not based on a novel. Yeah. It's not part of a series. It just exists as a movie and is an original thing, and that's something that's nice about Parasite. Like, and it's a cool, just original story. Like the story itself is a very unique kind of story. It's very cool. Yeah, I really, really like that movie. It wasn't quite as dark and twisted as I wanted it to be, but it still delivers.
That's Park Chan-wook, right?
Yes.
He's got a pretty good track record.
Really, really good track record. And it seems like finally, like all these years, like people are finally waking up to like, oh yeah, like a Korean movie could be actually a good movie to go see.
Oh man, Korea's putting out some great movies.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they have been for a long time, but it seems like it takes a long time for anybody to take notice. So, yeah, I'm trying to pull up the list of movies that I've seen in 2019. Because that would probably, I'm not going to do them all, but I'm just trying to say that's probably my second favorite of 2019.
Yeah, my list is not very big. It's got like 5 movies on it when I've seen probably 40 movies from 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe more than that. I mean, I've been pretty busy.
Yeah, I've seen about 40, like I said, if you count all these different things. I mean, I saw the big things like the Star Wars movie, the Avengers movie, Captain Marvel, and Spider-Man. Those are all 2019 movies. As far as like the theater, I also saw Yesterday and Rocket Man.
Oh.
And very disappointing Pet Sematary remake, which was crap. Just a complete waste of time. I saw Us in the theater, which was not great, but I liked it more than Get Out because we've talked about this before. I just feel like Get Out, there's just nothing particularly original about it. Us, at least, is fairly original. So I like Us.
I got to give it points for that, man, because, today when like nothing is original, it's nice to see stuff like that. I know it's full of plot holes, but what do you...
That's really the main reason I went to see it. Yeah. Because, it's like I want to support this kind of movie, something that's original. And not to get into a thing about it or take up too much time, but yeah, back in the summer, I really wanted to see Midsommar for the same reason. And I just saw Midsommar like a few days ago, and I felt kind of let down by it. I didn't, I'm not criticizing it. I don't think it was in any measure bad. I'm trying to say, it's a bad movie. I didn't think it was bad. It wasn't kind of what I hoped, I guess.
It's streaming on US Prime right now for anybody that wants to watch it.
Yeah, and that's how I watched it. I watched it on Prime as well.
That's not the director's cut, right? That's the theatrical.
I guess it's theatrical. It's still fairly long. It's well over 2 hours.
Oh yeah, it's pretty long.
That's not really my issue with it, though. But I really like cult stuff. So this is a movie that is built in for me to like. So I don't dislike it. I don't think it was bad, but I did feel somewhat let down by it.
That director he manages to capture pain and just gut-wrenching pain, and then tie it into horror in one way or another. Like he did with Hereditary.
I really like Hereditary.
Ari Aster, which I think is why the films are so memorable.
There's definitely some memorable stuff in the movie for sure. Some really good visuals.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Although I have to say, I don't know how. I think part of the thing that helped me feel like for one thing, I didn't think it was really suspenseful enough. Was one of the things, and I think part of that was the environment itself, because they were in a place where night almost never happened. There's no night scenes, and I do think that detracts. Even though I realize that's the point. They're way up north, and they comment on the fact the midnight sun, and there's only an hour or two of darkness at this time of year, and there's so much daylight.
I think they go to sleep it's still daylight.
Yeah. That's what it is. Like, I don't think there's any night scenes. At one point, one of the characters is out, and she says, like, "Did it get dark?" And they're like, "Only for like an hour," because again, the time of year and where they were. And I realized at the point, and they're trying to juxtapose this, bright, nice environment against, the horror that's going on. And I'm not saying that fails. I'm just saying I kind of would have liked maybe a conventional, some darkness and light. And I guess that's the other thing. Like, the place is too open. Like, it's just sort of like this big field with some buildings. And I don't know, like, when there's cult stuff, I like stuff being hidden and tucked away. I want somebody to be able to go into a basement or something, and I wish there was a bit more investigation going on. Like, that's why I like something like kind of the original one for all this, what's it called? The Wicker Man, not the remake. Although the remake is certainly worth a watch because it's hilarious. But the Wicker Man.
It's definitely, it's definitely ripping off the Wicker Man. But.
Yeah, I mean, and that's fine. I'm not saying like that's a bad thing. But what I like about the Wicker Man, it was like it did have sort of that air of mystery to it. He's investigating something, and you eventually find out it's a trap. Like this, all along it's a trap, and the characters just sort of willingly walk into it. And I'm not saying they were dumb. It's not like I thought the characters were dumb or anything. Like in some horror movies where you see them, doing really stupid things. I don't know. But when there's like cult stuff, I kind of like, I like more of like a suspenseful, mysterious type thing. This is all really just sort of all out in the open, that was a choice. They did that on purpose, and that's fine. But it didn't work as well for me. I wanted something a bit more suspenseful.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that you either love it or you hate it. I think it seems to be the consensus I'm seeing, but that's the general way people are now, anyway.
Yeah,
it's a piece of shit, or it's the best thing ever.
Yeah, this I thought I would call it certainly a good movie. It just didn't quite deliver what I wanted. Like I don't know if it was bad by any stretch, but
but I mean, I could definitely see the pacing, because it takes them a while to even actually get there. But it's all set up for what this young woman's gone through. And she's the perfect candidate to be, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but, to be there. She's the perfect candidate to join them.
Yeah. Like, so the ending didn't quite have the impact I guess it should have for me. Like, I got it. I understood what they were doing, but it just did. I don't know.
And they managed to capture, like hallucinating on, like, mushrooms or acid perfectly. Like, I've never seen anybody be able to do it like that.
Yeah, like seeing stuff like growing.
That's exactly what it's like, man.
Yeah.
Because you see depictions of, it's all just like crazy shit going on. It's not that crazy.
Yeah, like a psychedelic light show.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I've never been on anything that did that.
Really?
Not to that extent.
Oh man, I still hit my spine sometimes, and I'll go into it again.
That's interesting. But yeah, I don't want to go movie by movie here, but also say that also in theater, speaking of movies based on manga, I did see Alita Battle Angel, which is ridiculous but fun. It's a very fun movie.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. I like that one a lot too.
It was a fun movie.
May add that to my list, actually.
The manga is really nice. And nowadays, they just probably to coincide with the movie, there's some nice new hardcover editions of that manga, which is so it's good timing. But some of these 2019 movies I didn't see in 2019. Only saw actually just saw this month. Like Midsummer was one of them. Another one was Booksmart. Remember Booksmart, the comedy about the two girls. It's basically, I'm sure I'm the millionth person to say this. It's basically like if you took Superbad and made it about two girls instead of about two guys. It's kind of what it is.
Directed by Olivia Wilde.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
It's pretty good. It's definitely worth a watch. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure everybody's made the comparison. But it's basically, if you made Superbad, but instead of making about two boys, it was about two girls. Because that's more or less what's going on here.
Yeah, I know they made the other film.
It hits all the same beats, too, story-wise, which is pretty funny. I mean, it's a different movie. Different stuff happens. But it hits the same beats and stuff.
They made another film that they called Superbad, but the kids are younger. Somewhere in Superbad.
Yeah. Good Boys?
I think that's it.
Yeah, I was really interested in that, and somebody told me that it was terrible. So,
comedy these days, man, it's just comedy's like dead, right?
In a way. I mean, I thought this movie was decently funny, but I wouldn't say it's a great comedy. But it was decently funny. It's very of the time. It's like, for people like us, it shows how fucking different high school is now. Like, they do a really, like, I mean, I get it. That's what it is for every generation, I'm sure. You see how different things are, so I'm not saying it's completely unrecognizable, because it's not. Although there is one moment where, like, one of the main characters is in, like, the thing is supposed to be she's in one of the bathrooms in the school, and she's in a stall, and she overhears people, like, talking shit about her. But the thing is, it's a girl and two guys, and they're all hanging out in the same bathroom like it's completely normal. What the hell is that? Like, that's still not a thing. Nobody says anything about it or comments on it. It's just two guys and a girl are hanging out in the bathroom talking to each other, and then, of course, while another girl's in the stall using it, she comes out, and again, she doesn't seem upset that there are two boys in the bathroom. I guess they don't make any distinction that it's a boys' or girls' bathroom. She's just upset that they were all making fun of her.
So apparently that's Jonah Hill's sister in that.
I don't know. That makes it even funnier in a way, to think when I made the super bad thing.
Beanie Feldstein?
I don't know. I don't. Everybody's so young in that movie. I have no idea who any of them are.
She was the thicker milkshake?
Yeah, I guess so. I thought her friend was very pretty. But anyway, I liked the movie fine. I'm not going to say it's like going to be a classic or anything, but I thought it was a pretty good movie.
Yeah, I'll check it out. It's nice to have a palate cleanser like that every once in a while.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are some people in there you're going to recognize. Like, I think Jason Sudeikis is in it.
Oh, gosh, he's annoying.
Or I always get Jason Sudeikis mixed up with a different guy. No, I'm pretty sure that's Jason Sudeikis. Yeah.
It is him, because he, I think, is married to Olivia Wilde.
Okay, yeah. So he's like the principal, and like his hook is that he's like a loser. He's the principal and he sucks. But yeah. There's at least one other like adult actor I recognize, but now I can't think. But anyway, I mean, it's certainly worth a watch.
Did you ever see Thoroughbreds from? I think it was the year before 2018.
No,
that one's cool. Really dark comedy. You may enjoy that.
I'll look into it. Then I saw all sorts of stuff that was like straight to like Netflix, like Velvet Buzzsaw.
Still haven't seen
it. I don't even know if I can recommend it, because like, in a way, it seems like it would be very unique, but it's only unique in one way. In one way, as a horror movie, it's completely derivative and boring shit you've seen a million times, because the whole idea is like they stumble upon like art, like it's about an art dealer guy, and they stumble upon like art by like this guy who's dead now, and the whole thing is like there's something weird about his art, like it's haunted or some shit, right? It's like anybody that like, and his art becomes really popular, but anybody that like buys his art or gets too close, like it's gonna like mangle them or kill them or whatever, which is super derivative. But it's still kind of worth watching because of the character, that the main guy, and that's Gyllenhaal, and that he's like this interesting bisexual guy. And it's one of the few times where he like a movie seems to actually understand what a bisexual person is like, instead of just making them like crazy sex demons, which is usually how they're shown in movies. So it's kind of worth watching just for his depiction of this very interesting character. But as far as like the horror elements go, it's completely derivative and predictable, and you're not going to get anything out of it. So yeah, so that's one of like that highlights some of the straight to streaming or whatever releases that I saw of that year too, which helps bumps up the total, because a decent amount of things in theater, but obviously I didn't see 40 movies in theater. But I also saw the Invader Zim straight to Netflix movie, which was cool because I always been an Invader Zim fan. I mean, it basically plays like an extra long episode of that show, so why not? I actually saw The Wandering Earth as it was released on Netflix, but it did get a limited theatrical release here. And I think like people savaged it, but I liked it. I thought it was it's like China's first like big sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun. Again, not destined to be a classic, but I liked it. But anyway, I don't want to go down the list and just name everything I saw. But my point is making, like, I did see more from 2019 than I thought. So if you want to throw a couple out there that you saw that you thought were pretty good, or
we pretty much already named them all. Of course, I liked Glass a lot more than you did.
No.
I was kind of surprised how much I like Uncut Gems because I wasn't really sure. I've just been thinking about this movie so much.
So that's I saw the preview for that. So that's like it's like a kind of like a crime drama thing with Adam Sandler in the middle of it.
It really manages to it puts you in a mindset that's just unsettling because he's constantly got to basically borrow from Peter to pay Paul the whole time. So he's just in debt to all these people and constantly getting his ass kicked. And he's a jeweler, and it's based on a real guy that those brothers that directed it. I think their dad knew or something like that. But yeah, Adam Sandler does a pretty damn good job. I got to say, I feel like he probably should have been nominated.
That's cool.
Honestly,
I was kind of surprised that got a theatrical release. I was expecting that to be like a Netflix thing, and then it did get a theatrical release, didn't it?
it was Good Time is what got that movie made. With,
Like I also saw Triple Frontier, which is a completely forgettable movie, but it's got Oscar Isaac and Ben Affleck in it, right? So it seems like it should be a big deal, but do not bother at all.
Really?
Although, well, the only thing I can say is like apparently because of the cast, I'm sure a lot of women enjoy it because it's kind of like a parade of handsome, rugged men. So I suppose there's that angle for it. But no, the movie's so bland and boring. Like you don't give a shit at all. It's something again you've seen it a million times. They're like a special ops team, and they're going to try to rip off a drug lord and get his money, and maybe some people will betray each other. It's just the Between the Two Ferns movie. That's a pretty funny movie with Zach Galifianakis.
I still haven't seen the big Tarantino film.
Yeah,
I didn't care for.
You'll like it. You'll like it.
And I also still haven't seen the Scorsese film, which I'll get around to eventually.
I have no interest in ever seeing that. The Irishman, don't care.
Irishman, yeah. I don't know. I want to see Joe Pesci again. I haven't seen him in anything in a long time.
It's just him just getting the old band back together.
Yeah,
really what it is. Which I understand why that appeals to a lot of people, but I've completely moved on from that. I'll just watch the older movies. I don't need to.
It's that runtime that's turning me off a little bit.
Yeah, and as much as I defend longer movies, I've heard like that brought up a lot. A lot of people saying it didn't have to be that long.
Right.
A lot of people have even people that were really high in the movie and said this was a really great movie. They're all hitting the notes, and Scorsese still got it. But a lot of even those people are still saying like that you could easily shave like 40 minutes off it, which is a lot. So yeah, but I don't have any interest in it.
Yeah. It's nominated, I think, for a bunch of stuff.
That's good. It doesn't bother me. Like awards don't really mean much to me. So.
But it, kind of went straight to Netflix, so it wouldn't, by their own definition, like it shouldn't qualify.
Yeah, exactly.
It played in like 3 theaters, like in New York City, for like a week.
I know that happened with a lot of movies as a loophole, so that they could get consideration for things.
I think we're getting to a point where you can't really differentiate when. It went straight to fucking Netflix, man. By their own argument, like
they're saying it's not worthy of consideration.
Right.
Yeah. Stupid. Even though it's made by Scorsese and has all these A-list actors, with and it's a 2.5 hour movie with I'm sure 3.5 hour movie with like a super long, big, which I'm probably a pretty good budget and stuff, but it didn't have that thing.
They it's the guys that they feel like they can make the rules around themselves. So it's this is a movie that isn't a movie, and I'm Scorsese, so I get to decide that.
Yeah, it's super annoying. Like I don't care how accomplished you are in film, like that's just a stupid stance to take.
Yeah.
And that's really was as I've said. I realize that when I argue against him, people might want to call me a butthurt fanboy that thinks that I don't think the Marvel movies are amazing. I just like them.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's saying like how they don't take risks and they're like an amusement park ride. I'm like clearly you didn't watch them. I'm not saying because they're the height of cinema. They're not. But to insult them that much, I think is ridiculous.
Well, it's an awfully slippery slope because what are you going to say? Action movies aren't movies, This it has to be these 3 beats in order for it to be a real film.
Yeah. and I've harped on this before, because as much as I like Scorsese and think he's done fine films, I'm really interested to know what risks were taken in his movies, which are basically crime dramas and biographies. Like, I don't know. I'm a broken record. People have already seen me say that, so I'm not going to go on. I will say we have to get to our main topic, but I will just say one more thing. Kind of the most bizarre and movie. Like, I have no idea who it was made for or what you're supposed to think about that I saw. And it was, again, this was only like a few weeks ago. It was actually probably after 2019 it ended. Was the Detective Pikachu movie. I have no idea who that movie is for. Because even if you're the biggest Pokemon fan in the world, it's not like that movie is really that much like Pokemon. Like, I think it's just like what happens when you have two really popular things kind of collide and people think like that's awesome, because you, on the one hand, you have a super successful popular game series, and also that has some beloved shows and movies made of it. But at least those movies are like made basically on the show. This is not. And then you have Ryan Reynolds, and people going, Ryan Reynolds is Pikachu, which is hilarious to people. So that's like the only reason the movie got made. Like, that movie is just, I don't know. I don't know what you're supposed to get out of it. Like, it's not funny. It's not interesting. It doesn't have good action. It just, like, I have no idea why it exists or who could actually like it.
Is it live action?
Yeah, it's live action. Obviously with CG Pokemon running around.
Mm-hmm.
But I just have no idea what you're. Even if you're the biggest Pokemon fan in the world, I can't understand how it would appeal to you. I don't know. It's baffling. So I'll just end that. Like, I've seen like some weird 2019 movies, and I'm saying that's like weird, but it's weird by like I have no idea what they intended by it. I don't understand what they intended. Because it's in some ways it's supposed to be like the Pokemon world, because it is a world where like what are you asking? If I like the song? Because I don't even remember it, so that it couldn't have been that good if I don't remember it. If you mean the song at the credits, I don't know. But I can't even call it a bad movie. It's just like I have no idea why it exists. Except, like I said, I get why it exists to a certain extent, because again, you're taking like a couple popular things and you're putting them together, and you're like, that's going to be box office, and I'm sure it did fine at the box office. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just so baffled by that movie, by like what it's doing, what it's saying, what it's showing. It's all just so stupid. So I can't recommend it unless you just want to be baffled like I am. I'm sure, as always, there's some group of people that got something out of it, and that's fine. But honestly, I don't know what it could have been. It's not even as funny as you might like think the premise is. It's like, oh, Ryan Reynolds, he's Deadpool and he's so funny, and now he's being Pikachu. Yeah, I guess he has some decently funny lines, but really nothing memorable or worth actually sitting through an entire movie for. I can tell you that.
Doesn't Pikachu just make like weird noises? Like, he doesn't actually talk, does he?
Yeah, the whole thing is like, it is, I guess, following the rules of the Pokemon world, in that like Pokemon don't talk; they just say whatever their name is, right?
Right.
But the idea is like, this guy is like, he shows up in this city where like people in Pokemon live side by side, and it's great or whatever. But like his father was a cop, and he's gone missing. But the thing is, often when people have like jobs, they usually have like a Pokemon partner. Mm-hmm. So his father had like a Pikachu partner, mm-hmm. and and for some reason, and for reasons even the Pikachu doesn't know, the Pikachu can talk, because the Pikachu says like, because he's saying like, what happened to my father? And he's like, I don't know what happened to your father. I have amnesia. I don't remember anything. I don't even know why I can talk, because we're in a world where we can't. Oh, but the other thing is, even though he can talk, only this main character understands him. He's like, I didn't even know I could talk. Everybody else hears Pika Pika. So it's really bizarre. So yeah, he's the only one that does talk, and only one character understands him. The rest of the Pokemon that show up, they all just act the way Pokemon do in the games and show and stuff. They just blather their names. And it's pretty stupid reason. When you find out why he can talk and why he can understand, it's very stupid. Yeah. Yeah, 2019. I don't know. There's more movies to be seen, so I won't just, I won't say whether it was a good or bad year for film, but saw some good movies, saw some bad movies. It was a lot. It was like a lot of years, I guess. There were some good, there were some bad, there was some meh.
Yeah, I want to see that Adam Driver movie, one that I don't even think got released near me at all. It's him, Marriage Story, I think it is.
Yeah, that's getting a lot of good reviews. I don't like movies about relationships. They just bum me out and make me think of my own failed relationships.
Yeah, it's he and Scarlett Johansson.
Scarlett Johansson, yeah. I mean, people say it's like a good story with good acting, and I like all that. But yeah, I don't like stories about relationships. I don't mind movies that have relationships in them, but I don't like movies where that's the entire thing. It's about that like a romantic relationship.
Yeah,
They just bum me out. And even the ones I like usually that means I can only like watch them like once every a few years. Like I love Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which is essentially about a relationship, but there's other stuff going on in it. And I haven't watched that movie in like 10 years because it like still like tears right through me. So, yeah. So my Marriage Story. That's another one of those Netflix type movies, and it has a really good reputation. And I don't doubt it, but not anything that's on my list to watch.
I like him a lot. He's very distinctive looking guy. Looks like he's one of the missing members of the Ramones.
Yeah,
but
he does have kind of that look to him.
But he's a really good actor. So
yeah, I haven't seen him very much besides the Star Wars films. I saw him in Logan Lucky, and he's good in it. I just didn't like the movie. I didn't have any problem with him. I just didn't like the movie very much. And yeah, he shows some of his range because he's kind of a different sort of guy in that. And, I mean, I like him. I'll follow his career with interest, I'm sure.
I was trying to find this other movie I saw of his. That's he has his wife. They have a child, and she essentially like starves the child.
Oh wow!
Because she's all crazy in the head and thinks shouldn't be eating that for whatever reason. I can't find the title of it though.
I know that Adam Driver was also in like what considered like one of the worst movies of 2019. What is the Dead Don't Die? Like everybody hates that movie.
It's bad.
I was actually interested when I saw the preview, but yeah, I've heard like everybody says it's bad. I can believe it. So that's the only other thing I can really think of for him besides Star Wars was that movie and yeah, the Marriage Story thing. I'm sure he's got lots of projects coming up though. Good actor. But anyway, yeah, after that little diversion, just a little retrospective on the year that it was, we can get into the actual topic of today, and that is from 2006, Tekkonkinkreet. People wondering about that title. Well, that actually translates as sort of it's a deliberate mispronunciation of the Japanese term for reinforced concrete. So that's where that comes from. So this is based on a manga of the same name, although sometimes also has the subtitle part called Black and White from Taiyo Matsumoto. And this is a movie that was just many years ago recommended to me just around the time that it come out by a friend. I've mentioned the friend before because he is the weird friend I had that like really turned me on to like a lot of foreign movies and stuff like that. But he wasn't an anime guy though. But this was an anime he thought was really good. And then I was looking into the manga at my comic store. I remember they had a big volume of it, and I was flipping through it, and it all looked very cool and interesting. But anyway, this movie is probably best known over here because, as it even says right on the Blu-ray cover, I've owned this movie for over 10 years from the animation studio that brought you the Animatrix. Yeah, and it's actually directed by one of the producers of the Animatrix in his directorial debut, and this makes it a little notable too, because this is an anime Japanese movie, an American named Michael Arias. And Michael Arias, if you look into him, you understand why, because even though he's an American, he's actually an expat. He's been living in Japan since he was about 23, and now he's well into his 50s. But he's had a very interesting career, because this was his first time directing. What he was essentially before that was he was kind of like I'm trying to think of the word. He was like a visual effects artist besides working in animation. And actually, very early in my life, I encountered one of his works in that he was like the main designer or whatever behind Back to the Future: The Ride at Universal Studios, which is something I experienced in 1991. And apparently he was kind of the architect of that. So he has a very interesting career, always in and around movies, but never being that direct in them. And then he was one of the main producers of the Animatrix.
Mm.
The Wachowskis and Joel Silver invited him. I don't know how they knew about him to do the production on that. But anyway, so that same animation studio would do Tekkonkinkreet, and he would be the director. Although it's worth pointing out that there was a Japanese co-director on the movie, whose name suddenly I can't find. But anyway, so the animation studio in question is called Studio 4C, or maybe 4 degrees Celsius. It refers to 4 degrees Celsius. It has something to do with the temperature that water is most dense at. I don't know. Things have weird names sometimes. So yeah, so this is Tekkonkinkreet, which is about two orphans living on the streets together in this very interesting city, and the district they're in is often referred to as Treasure Town, and it's just very visually sumptuous, which is one of the things that's really stands out about this movie, is just all the level of detail of this really cool city. The city itself, I don't know, it depends upon whether you watch a lot of anime or know much about Japan, but what will strike you right away if you do know this stuff is it's not a particularly Japanese-looking city, and the idea is the city is actually sort of a Pan-Asian sort of amalgamation. So it's basically, it has some Japanese elements to it, but also takes things from places like Tokyo, Tokyo, of course, Hong Kong, Sri Lanka, maybe a place like Bangkok, maybe Vietnamese places.
Shanghai too, I think.
Shanghai for sure. So there's a lot of different Asian cities, visual aesthetics all crammed in there. And it looks really great. And it's a very cluttered look, but it's a very cool and distinct look. So yeah, it's about that pair, Kuro, or Black, and the younger one, Shiro, White, who are known as the Cats, which refers to stray cats, and very much about street life. It's funny. So if you look at the cover here and the main poster for the movie, it kind of makes it look like this is some sort of fun romp. It is not that kind of movie. It's actually has some fairly serious stuff going on here, dealing with street crime and stuff. The movie also has sort of a weird atmosphere in that I wouldn't call it a fantasy or anything. We talked about this before when we did stuff like Amelie, or maybe when we did some of the Wes Anderson stuff. I think it falls into that category. We've used the term magic realism. This movie's basically magic realism, more or less, in that you'll see the characters sometimes do things like some of jumping off buildings and stuff that's obviously not realistic. And then also there's these 3 hitmen that come into it that are basically superhuman. and yet nobody really questions it that much. So what we're dealing with here is, I wouldn't call it a fantasy. It's like a magic realism situation. It's mostly real life, but then there's just a few things that are out of place. And then there are a few things that you don't even necessarily have to take literally. There's a scene where Black and White are having a conversation on a rooftop, and at one point White is just sort of a little tired of the conversation, and he just sort of jumps off the building and doing his be happy mantra, and he just sort of falls like a leaf in the wind. I don't think you have to take that literally, that he can do that. It's just a visual representation sort of as his feelings.
Yeah, a lot of it's figurative, but it's displayed like it's actually happening.
Right.
I guess we'll get into that more.
One of the things that makes the movie interesting is these 2 characters. I mean, Black, the older, who's I guess maybe 15 years old, is kind of typical. He's sort of like a street tough, street smart, and he has a real dark side, which gets explored in the movie. And that he's good at violence, and he actually sort of revels in it at times. And White is there, and there's a lot of stuff about balance, about how White is here. They're here to balance each other, and White is even though White is almost 11 years old, as you find out in the movie, he's obviously probably somewhere maybe on the spectrum, autism-wise. So he's very childish and innocent, and he often can disconnect himself from reality and get into fantasies and stuff. Although he can switch into recognizing reality, too, because when he's in danger, he does understand. And then he has other things too, there's parts where they're at a bathhouse and Black has to dress him, this is a 10-year-old boy, but he still needs somebody to dress him and tie his shoes and things like that. So, yeah, sort of autism type situation. And that's
yeah, you're right.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, no, you go.
Okay, it just ties in. Like whenever we do the animes, we've done a few. There's often the option to watch it with the Japanese soundtrack and the subtitles, which is how I recommend most movies. But then there's sometimes when you have some well-established animes, I don't mind the dubs. Like a lot of the Studio Ghibli films that have got redone, they have fairly good dubs. But anyway, so I watch both. I recommend watching both. But one thing we talked about is I do think the English dub does help you, particularly obviously if you're an Anglophone, is in understanding that white is that way. It doesn't come. It's harder for that to come across if you're hearing a Japanese actor speak Japanese and just reading the subtitles. So you can really benefit from listening to the kid that does white giving the performance, because it really gets it across that this kid is a little off or whatever. Sorry.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's what I was going to say. I thought you were right about that, because the translation, the subtitles may not be able to convey that he is, a little special.
Yeah, like you would see that he's saying strange stuff, but it's also in the delivery itself, like just the way he says it. Like he has a sort of far off, dreamy way of saying things, which helps. And that's how the movie opens. It opens with him talking. He usually does this thing about what he's Agent White from Japan and planet Earth, and he's reporting in and stuff like that. And he talks about how it's a peaceful planet, and he tries to keep the peace by fighting bad guys. And that's the other thing. Again, he's the yin to the yang, and that Black's all sort of about violence and conflict, where white is very much about being peaceful and kind. They talk about that, and even though Black is his protector, takes care of him, he is upset that Black resorts to violence a lot. And there's a part where he says, every time Black hurts somebody, I talk to God and I tell God we're sorry. So it's a pretty, I get it, it's kind of on the nose, but it's still a very interesting dynamic that makes it stand out a bit. And so you've got them, and Black often refers to Treasure Town as his town because he kind of thinks he runs things, even though at the end he's really just sort of an inconsequential, again, stray cat, as I say. He runs around, and even though he's aware of the organized crime, he's not part of it. Really, all he indulges in is petty theft, as far as we know. Sometimes he'll pick pockets or shoplift or something, but that's really all he does. But he is in tune with sort of the streets and the underworld. And as the movie opens, you find out that there is sort of a local group. What the hell do they call themselves? They dress stupidly. They call themselves something anyway. They're some local gang that kind of take care of things, and they're friendly with Black and White, and they're friendly with most of the community. So you realize that they, even though they're a gang and they're criminals, they only go so far in what they do. And then what's disrupted in the movie is that you've got a Yakuza element coming into it with the arrival of Suzuki, the rat, who had obviously been there before, because everybody's talking about how he's been gone and now he's back. The rat is back. And so this is where things start to change, is when you get these characters starting to coming into conflict with each other. But getting back to the English dub, I was saying how there's some fairly established voice actors if you watch animation over here. Notably, Fujimara, who is one of the two cops in the movie, the older, he's voiced by Maurice LaMarche, who we talked about before on the show, and that I was saying about how he was the guy they always use for Orson Welles type stuff, and he's the voice of the Brain on Pinky and the Brain, and he's in all sorts of different cartoons that people have watched. Phil LaMarr has a small role. Phil LaMarr, of course, appears on Futurama, and also on Futurama is John DiMaggio, who does the voice of Bender. You can hear that almost a very similar voice he's doing for the unnamed Yakuza boss. It sounds a lot like Bender, different. And most notably, Black is voiced by Scott Menville, who's well into his 40s now, but still has a very youthful voice and has been doing voice work since he was a kid. And probably his best known roles these days is that he was the voice of Robin on Teen Titans and into Teen Titans Go. And he's using a very similar voice for Black. Black sounds a lot like Robin. It's very similar. There's a little tweak to make it sound a little different. But yeah, so anybody that's familiar with some of those shows or some of those voice actors, that gives you an idea of what some of these characters sound like. I think those are the only names. I looked up David Lodge, who played Suzuki the Rat, because it sounded familiar, but I don't think I've really seen him or heard him in anything else. He's actually in Paprika, which is the other movie by the guy that did Perfect Blue, but I can't place him. It says that he did a character called Dr. Tataroshima. It's been too many years since I saw Paprika, so I'll have to watch that again sometime soon too. Anyway, so that's a rundown of some of the English voice cast, who are quite good in this movie. So I just wanted to say that, like, yeah, even though I sometimes am critical of dubs, I would say this is a fairly good dub. And again, because of the element of white situation, it is beneficial to watch the English dub because you get a better sense of the way white is. So yeah, it does have that going for it.
Let me ask you real quick. We got a question from the chat.
Oh, sure. I'm not a sushi person. I'll eat it with other people, but it's not something I seek out for myself. So, like, these days, like, I haven't eaten in years. I mean, I had, like, a girlfriend that was into it, and sometimes I would try some of it. I don't dislike it exactly. It's just not something I go out of my way for. So, unless I'm with somebody else that's eating it, I'm not eating it. So, I don't really have any favorite types. There's a few that I probably wouldn't touch. There probably is some sushi that I wouldn't touch, but I don't remember.
I've tried, man. I've tried to like unagi multiple times. I just can't. It just, I don't care for it. But
I'm a big person. Like, I'm a pretty picky eater in a lot of ways anyway. And again, one of the main things has less to do with taste and more to do with texture.
Yeah.
And I'm not really thrilled about the texture of sushi. It's a little squishy for my taste, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I like, tuna sashimi.
Tuna rolls, things, yeah. They're not bad.
And crab. But the thing about sushi is good sushi is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't get to eat it as often as I'd like.
Yeah. No, a couple of years ago, a girl, she was actually Chinese, but she really liked sushi. And I lived just down the street from the most popular sushi place in the city. And I didn't mind getting it for her, but it was so popular that it was always a super long wait. Every time you go down there, the place is jumping, and I'm just trying to get some takeout, and I'm still, 15, 20-minute wait, if at least. So that was always a bit annoying. But yeah, I haven't been down there in at least 3 years, probably, because I don't seek it out for myself. If I'm in the company of somebody, maybe I'll have some, but it's not something I'm like, oh, I got to get some sushi. So I won't say I hate it, but it's not something I go for. So I don't particularly have a favorite type. I don't know. Maybe if I get to live in Japan, I'll get into it more. We'll see. But I'm not a big food person anyway. It wouldn't really matter what country I live in. I'm not the type of person that takes advantage of food. Like, I don't know. If I lived in somewhere like that has great food, like New York City or Montreal or something, I'd be like eating like Subway. I wouldn't be taking advantage the way most people would. Just like when I am traveling and going to a place, that's not on my to-do list. Like, I don't think about where I'm going to eat.
Really?
I just eat like wherever is close and convenient. Like, I don't think, okay, I'm in this city, gotta have some of this. Like, that doesn't register with me. I'm not a food-oriented person. I don't hate food or anything. I just don't have the enthusiasm for it a lot of people do. Like, I enjoy food. There's food that I like that I think is better than other food. And sometimes I'll really be in the mood for something and think, this is a great time to be having this. But I don't know. I don't have the same enthusiasm for a lot of people. And I really hate spending money on food. Food is not a permanent thing. You can't keep it. You just eat it and move on. So, like, I was at the grocery store today, and there were all sorts of things I needed, and I refused to buy because I'm cheap. So I'm just like, no, I can't do it. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I heard a story recently about a guy who I think he was an exchange student in Paris. And he just went and ate like Burger King like 3 times a day.
I don't think I'm that bad. But if I do get to live in Japan, eating will be a bit of a challenge for me because I'm not really much of a fan of the Japanese diet. I will have to rely on some of that. I won't lie. I will have to be like, I don't know, getting some of the, like, I don't know, Pizza Hut or KFC or whatever the hell they have over there. I will have to rely on that a bit as I at least adjust.
Yeah. It's also it comes down to money. Those 3-course meals, 5-course meals really add up.
For sure. But I don't know. So yeah, I'm not anti-sushi. It's just not particularly something I'm that into. Anyway, so who else do we have as characters in here? So we've got main characters, and then we've got the rat Suzuki, who is the mid-level yakuza. His protege. Why can't I think of his name?
Oh, Snake?
No. Suzuki's protege, the young yakuza. Where the fuck can I see it? Starts with an M. It's just not coming to me. Oh no, not an M. It's with a K. Kimura. It's Kimura. Sorry. So yeah, so Kimura is kind of like his protege and really looks up to him, and he's one of those young up and coming yakuza that really has like big ambitions about it and all the stuff about it. Then there's the yakuza boss that doesn't have a name. He's just the boss. And eventually, yes, a character who reveals himself to be sort of the ultimate villain of the movie comes in. He's known as Snake. He almost looks like a vampire in his appearance.
Yeah.
And again, I think this goes to the magic realism thing. They're just trying to point out that he's foreign. So, in getting into this, Suzuki, he's kind of the old school yakuza, and he often talks about the way things used to be and stuff. And actually, it's one of the first things he says when he has his first meeting back with the boss. He's like, just first impressions. It seems to be there's a lot of foreigners around, which would really fit in with the old school yakuza, and that they really don't like foreigners, and it's a very self-contained thing. It's all about native Japanese, and even native Japanese of a certain kind. We won't get into it, but there's a whole hidden there's a whole hidden kind of racism that exists in Japanese society that most people don't know about. But anyway, so so he represents kind of the old school. Kimura very much looks up to him and wants to be him. He's kind of his mentor, I guess, and boss. Yeah, he really. Then we have the two cops. We've got so it opens with the older cop, whose name I said, and of course has gone out of my head again. The Fujimura, and he's meeting a new younger cop that's going to be his partner, and that is Sawada. Sawada's an interesting case in that he's a rare, and it's rare in real life too. He's an asexual. He refers to himself as frigid, which is kind of funny. But I was going to say, it is an interesting take because, I'm not going to say, there should be more asexual representation in movies. No. So obviously they're rare because they're super rare in society. Like an asexual is even rarer than a transsexual. But when they are depicted, they are usually depicted as cold, unfeeling individuals. What I like about Sawada is he plays against types. Sawada is actually a warm, caring person with lots of compassion, which I'm sure asexuals are perfectly capable of being. Not to go off on a tangent, but asexuals always interest me because I always think about something my high school English teacher always said was there's only really two things that rule the world, and they are sex and religion. And I've always felt ever since I basically in my early teens gave up on religion and became an atheist. It's interesting because you get to see this whole side of the world that many people, it rules their lives, and you're completely immune to it. It all seems silly to you. It's the same thing for asexuals. There's this whole part of society that is just driven by sex and relationships based on sex, and everything comes down to sex. And my life is ruled by it. It really is. So I'm only halfway. Imagine being an atheist who is an asexual. The world would seem insane to you because everybody is controlled by these two forces that don't mean anything to you. So I don't know. That's something I think about a lot, probably more than other people. I've never met an asexual. Again, they're a very rare type of person. I remember seeing a show on probably TLC about some asexuals, and it was interesting because a myth about them is they don't have relationships. Asexuals can actually have romantic relationships. It's just very hard for them to find each other, and of course it would be a completely non-physical relationship, completely, and for a lot of us it's really hard to make that distinction, to be in love with someone but not want or desire them in any physical way. It's a really interesting concept to most people.
So an asexual will need to find another asexual to have a relationship with?
Well, I think so. Well, I mean, because an asexual could fall in love with I just mean a normal person, right? They could fall in love with them, and the other person could even fall in love back with them. But the problem would be the asexual would not want to be touched or, you know, uh, do anything intimate with them. So they probably be at their best with another asexual. Because like I couldn't think of anything it would be kind of a crazy hell for you or I to fall in love with an asexual person, even if they reciprocate our feelings, because they're not attracted to you in any way, and it's not personal. They're not attracted to anyone. But that's just something again, a normal or whatever person, we couldn't handle that. That would drive you crazy.
I heard Dr. Drew recently talking about that, and people that self-diagnose themselves as asexual. A lot of times it's tied back to like hormones or some sort of lacking of something that you're not getting.
Yeah, it's true. There might be people out there that maybe they're not actually, and like you said, there's something happening, and if they had medication or something,
like a glandular thing.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, even for some of those people, maybe they're just at peace with it anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
how many times have I thought, especially either if I did something stupid or had got out of a relationship or something like how simple my life would be if I wasn't ruled
exactly
by things, right?
I mean, life would be much more simple. That's generally everything men do is to, for the purpose of to have sex.
And this is different for men and women because women can, of course, have multiple orgasms, or at least so I've heard. But you know what it's like for a man, sex. But then you have your moment, you have your orgasm, and it's great. And then in the moments after it, you don't care about sex
at all.
You're just completely clear. Right?
Yeah.
You have that one, it doesn't last long, but you have those few moments of clarity where I don't know, the sex goddess of your dreams could walk in and you don't care. You understand that she's super hot and everything, but you're spent. It's out of you for the moment. So I think asexuals must have that clarity all the time. Their brain isn't fogged up with
right.
They're not fogged up with always being attracted to things and stuff like that. But I mean, even for somebody, and I realize that I kind of am an overtly sexual person. I don't mind admitting it. I am with them. Even for people that aren't that much, it's still interesting that it's just part of our society. You can just be a normal, normal, by which I mean not like me, person with an ordinary, maybe in a below average sex drive. I don't know. You're out on the subway and you see an ad with a lingerie model and you're aroused by it.
Yeah.
That's just part of daily life. You don't dwell on or think about it. Just like we talked about. Remember when we talked about how it is kind of confusing to us why so many movies, when sex is not a big part of the plot, will go out of their way to make a sort of graphic sex scene. Because what's the point? It's not actually pornography. We're not seeing real sex. It's simulated. It is sexy to a certain degree, but how much do you want? Since your movie is something like Monsters Ball or whatever, where you're telling an overarching story that's about other things, is it important to get your audience all horned up?
In that case, absolutely. That was a selling point for that movie.
I suppose that's true, right? And I just recently watched that movie.
It's something I don't think women understand. Men, it's we got to get this poison out.
Yeah.
Or something bad's going to happen.
Because I know women understand what it's like to have an orgasm and lay back and feel sexually satisfied, but it's still not the same clearing out that it is for a man. And
30 minutes later, it's back to the grind.
Yeah, possibly even less, right?
Yeah.
Back. Yeah. But that's what I always think. So I always think that since, and I'm not trying to, this is not me saying I'm above or better than religious people. I don't give a fuck. I'm just saying, since it's something I don't concern myself with, I can step back and just think to myself, to me, it seems like a huge waste of time and energy, all this stuff people do about religion. And it's the same thing, I think, for an asexual, thinking about people that have ordinary sex drives, all this time and energy you're spending on this thing, So I just think there must be the rare person out there that is an atheist and an asexual, where the world must be just bonkers to them, because sex and religion are the two driving forces in the world, period, that drive everything. The thing,
and love, love too.
It's the thing that they're most passionate about and care about, and they put their energy into it. It's all well and good. They have a job they like, and they have this and that, but it all has to tie into the other two in some way.
Yeah, you have a lot of free time, I'm sure. A lot of time to think about other things.
I think they must be very productive people.
Yeah. The people that complain about us staying on topic are really going to hate this show.
Well, if anybody's here, we're so glad to have you back for 2020. But anyway, I was just going to say, Sawada's not a huge character in this, but I think he's interesting because it bucks the trend that sometimes you see that, like, if there is an asexual character, they're kind of like cold and distant and they don't care about people, which is sort of untrue. Asexual people have feelings and emotions. They just don't have physical attraction and physical gratification. So Sawada's the good character because, yeah, it's funny too. There's even another part of it where, like, he and Fujimura follow the rat to talk, and so he brings them into like a strip club, and they're in the theater watching the strip club, and he's sort of laughing at Fujimura because Fujimura, I guess, feels like it's sort of beneath him as a cop. He shouldn't be in there, and he's making fun of him. He's like, "What about you, kid? Learning anything?" So Sawada's like, "No, not really. I'm frigid." And I really like the answer that the rat gives. He goes, sign of the times. The whole world's frigid." Which, I don't know, is not true, but I just like how he says it because it sort of fits his character. Because he's really about a character that lives in the past and is like, dissatisfied with the way the world has changed around him. Which is why, ultimately, because we're going to get to a point where he is going to die, he faces his death mostly not really caring. And you get the feeling, because it's just like, well, he lost the world he cared about. Now he's in a world where things have changed, so he's glad to leave it, really. Like, he doesn't mind that he's going to die.
That was a really touching scene, too, I thought.
Yeah. So skipping ahead here, this is a part where eventually Kimura has actually, in his quest, even though he has all this loyalty to Suzuki and has all this want and need to be like an old school Yakuza and all the honor and stuff that goes with it, he still wants to, above all, be sort of like a true professional and stuff and be able to like separate his emotions, which is why I think he eventually like gives in and lets Snake tell him what to do. Well, I think it makes him feel safer, and eventually Snake tells him, I want you to kill the rat. And he's like, are you crazy? And of course then he threatens him. He's just like, well, you've got, just picture your pregnant girlfriend with her belly ripped open. So now he has to do it, right? It's like, you have to do it because he knows Snake is powerful and employs agents and can do this. So yeah, so now he has to kill his mentor, who I always looked up to as a father, and he even has to tell him that. And you give Suzuki credit, because at first they're talking about like how he's going to marry his girlfriend and he wants him to be best man. And none of it fools Suzuki. Like, he knows where this is all leading. He plays along for a little while, but then he just sits down and just says, okay, it's a good time to die. And then he kind of instructs them on how to, do it the proper way. And it is very emotional because he's sort of crying while he's doing it.
Well, that's essentially his father.
Yeah, his father figure. The guy he always wanted to be.
Right.
And he's trying, and he just says, like, one last piece of advice, like, don't talk so much when you're whacking someone. He's like, yes, sir. So, yeah, very, very touching moment. What I don't get is how he's able to shoot him from that far away, and the cops think it's a suicide. But that's what they think.
Yeah, and it's a gut shot.
Yeah.
Generally, people don't shoot themselves in the stomach to kill themselves.
Yeah.
It happens. It's rare.
Yeah, it happens. And he asks, and that's his last request, too. He says, like, I'm not wearing any vest or anything, so you just don't shoot me in the face. Which is probably what I would say, too. If I knew someone was going to shoot me and I had to die, I'd be like, yeah, not the face.
Yeah, do you want to die like really painful death, though?
Yeah.
That's like I say, that's like the most painful way to die.
Don't shoot me like this, then. Shoot me like this. Okay?
Blow my brains out the backside of my head.
Yeah. Just like, if I was going to commit suicide by gun, boom, I'm not going to go. Or I don't understand the people that shoot themselves like through them. You see that all the time in movies. Does that happen in real life much?
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't do it.
They wind up like living too because they just blow like the frontal lobe off and they're still alive.
Yeah.
So they're disfigured and like mentally challenged.
Grisly stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. So I really like Sawada, even though because he shows that he's not just the typical typical as they're displayed. And again, it's not like there's too many asexual characters showing up on pop culture. Nor should there be. We're going to talk about representation. They're a very, very, very small segment of the population, which is for the best in some ways, because then like we wouldn't be able to breed and move forward. Although, as I said, I don't care about that. But I guess it's good that future generations go on.
Yeah.
I care about future generations. I just wouldn't care if it stopped. Because I'm not one of those people that's like, fuck everything after I die. I don't care if we leave the world a blasted hellscape. Like, no, I care. And that's why I care about climate change and things like that. Like, I want the earth to be nice for people that have to live after me. I'm just saying, if I talked about this before because we did the thing on Children of Men, right? If the Children of Men situation happened, it wouldn't upset me very much. It would upset me because of the way society would react. But the idea that mankind had reached the end of its road really doesn't bother me. But anyway, that's just me.
Yeah.
I hope humankind continues on and we build great societies and stuff and fly through space.
Yeah, considering like humans are what's killing this country, probably wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if they got eradicated, right?
That's what I mean. It would super benefit the rest of the planet
Yeah.
if we died out. Like, it would really, because of the way, not just we kill, but also the way we use animals and all that. And that's something I sort of waffle on because I'm the furthest thing from a vegetarian. But at the same time, it's not like I don't have a heart at all. I do feel bad about some of the practices and the way that animals are like slaughtered, and even the way we take milk from cows and stuff is not right. But I'm not going to stop drinking milk, so I don't know. So I guess I'm still part of the problem.
Well, you think we're raping the cow, or we should ask permission first?
Well, it's just that like the milk is not for us; it's for the cow's babies, and
Right. Yeah.
we're taking it away. And sometimes we're taking the baby. The babies don't even get to have any. In some of the practices. So again, I mean, I'm not a member of PETA or anything like that, but I do get disturbed by some of this stuff. But I don't necessarily have answers either.
You wouldn't be like first in line to pick out your bird.
No.
I want that one.
Yeah, no. Just like I say, like I'm definitely a meat eater, but I don't feel the need to like eat like every fucking animal ever. Like I eat like the basic things, like the cow, chicken, pig. We live in that, but I don't want to eat duck or deer or things like that. I know people do. I'm not going to say they're monsters, and I know I'm not doing anything great, but I just don't feel the need to like say I have to eat all the animals. I have to taste them all. Like no, like we have the basic ones, and they make pretty good stuff. I don't need to go out of my way. I don't know, like yeah. Like, I've had lamb before, but I don't need to have it again, so.
No, I mean, you can make the argument that eating, like, deer is, like, less of a footprint, because, one, you're controlling their population, and you're also not contributing to, the greenhouse gases that, cow and, cattle create.
Right. It's true. Like, I would never go out and shoot a deer. But it is true that if I did or somebody I knew did shot a deer and then like brought it so that we could eat it, it's not really so bad when you think about like eating food that has been like come from like slaughterhouses.
Yeah.
Where the animals are like, in really small cages and in horrible conditions, and then they're just slaughtered. So that's very true. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean we've got a lot of rules in place to make sure that the animals aren't being abused. Not that it doesn't still happen.
They're not followed in a lot of places. And actually, that's something that's going on behind the scenes in the U.S. There's so much stuff going in the U.S. that is one of the many things, we're not going to do a Trump thing here, but it was one of the many things that Trump is trying to do. He's trying to deregulate the pork industry, which would be really bad for a lot of reasons. And the animals, none of them.
What's the purpose of that?
I don't know. It's just some other way he could like make more money, I guess. Or other people.
Some like they're saying government shouldn't be regulating that.
Yeah, and they're saying like don't even send inspectors in and stuff.
I wasn't even aware of that. No, that's inspectors. They serve a lot of different purposes.
Right.
I mean, we're controlling like mad cow disease and trichinosis and stuff like that.
And obviously I'm not saying it's all him, but he's working with people that would take that out. That's one of the things, right? Again, I'm not going to do a big thing, but there's so much crazy stuff going on. Trump's doing this, doing that. Like that, some of the stuff just falls through the cracks, and that's one of them.
I wasn't even aware of that.
Yeah, so that would have a very negative effect, and on even the general population, because people have said like they've gone in, like investigative journalists have gone into some of these places and seen like pigs are like either like super like sick or wounded or even covered in shit, and they're still going on the line. Yeah. Like you don't want to eat that. Yeah. Like you're supposed to have somebody come in and stop that. So anyway,
chickens too. I know they've done studies where they're like stomping on chickens and stuff.
Yeah,
my father-in-law was in the poultry business, and that was a big no-no. Like they would always come in and do inspections and stuff to make sure that wasn't happening.
Right.
They weren't being mistreated when they were loaded into cages to go to the
Yeah.
slaughterhouse.
Because I mean, I get it. The whole term humane slaughter is like an oxymoron. Like, as long as you're slaughtering them, it's not humane. But there's at least different levels of how, like. But anyway, it's one of those really complicated issues where I feel all sorts of feelings about it, but I don't really know what to do. And I guess a lot of people who are holier than me could point out that I'm like, part of the problem because I am not a vegetarian and I'm not throwing paint at people. I don't know. It's complicated. But anyway. But to me, this is like a lot of anime. The movie is just so beautiful to look at. And the city is so great to explore with all its different crazy architecture and everything pushed together. And it really does feel like a real place, a real livable place, even though it's not a big movie. And I really love all the locations. There's a lot of care and time put into them, which of course comes from the manga. There's so much great architecture and alleyways and rooftops and statues and monuments and stores and arcades and stuff. Something that's, even though this is one of those movies, like I said, it's like a magical realism type thing, it is interesting to try to date the movie and say when it's happening. Because, like, for one thing, like, you couldn't catch this on your own because I couldn't either. I had to read this later. But there's a part, remember, where there's a few times where Suzuki talks about astrology. Well, the first time he brings it up, he's actually reading an astrology book. And if you can read Japanese, you find out that it's an issue of, like, a magazine devoted to it. And it's the summer 1967 issue. Now, he could just have an old book with him. But you could make it the argument that means the movie takes place between the summers of 67 and 68.
Oh, really? I didn't put that together.
But no, you couldn't either unless you knew, because there's no English date on it. You'd have to be able to read Japanese to see it. I read this later. So you can make that argument. But I have to say that can't be right because there's a scene later in an arcade, which wouldn't have existed back then. So I put the movie at probably the mid-'80s.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to date it. It's one of those movies that can sort of exist outside a real time frame in history anyway. But if you wanted to date it, I would say it's probably mid-'80s. It's probably like 85, maybe, right in the middle, I think. Because everything is fairly old-fashioned and analog, but there is an arcade that has like 80s-style graphics for the games, and that seems to be the giveaway there. But I really like the aesthetic. It's one of the main things I liked about the movie, why I picked it. And as I said, I've owned this movie for a long time, for more than 10 years. This is the first time in a long time I watched it, because I forgot a lot of stuff about it, and I don't know why I waited so long, because I really enjoy it. It's a really enjoyable movie. I just watched it for the second time in a row today. But, yeah, just a really great art style that some people would definitely recognize if they'd seen the Animatrix. The Animatrix uses some different styles for each vignette, but there's at least 2 or 3 vignettes that have basically this art style for them.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. I was surprised that it was as new as it is. I thought it feels like a 90s almost, like, maybe early 90s.
I mean, the manga's from the early 90s, so
right.
maybe that's a carryover from that. Because it is very faithful to the manga visually and the way the story unfolds.
I don't mean that as a bad thing. I'm just saying that's the way it felt to me. So, I mean, I guess they're doing what they're trying to do. They achieved what they're trying to do. Right. I was like, wow, 2006. Wow. Yeah. Feels older than that.
And I probably got it sometime in maybe 2008, 2009, more than 10 years ago. Actually, it might be one of the very first Blu-rays I bought. And actually, unlike most Blu-rays that I bought at the time, very cheap. I got this very cheaply. This was maybe like $10.99 or something.
Man, I was going to say, I bet it was $50.
Yeah. Like, I wasn't even looking for it. I got it. It might be the last thing I ever bought at the Sony store. I don't even know if the Sony store is still a thing. If it is, we haven't had one in many years. But I remember I was looking at completely different stuff at the Sony store, and they had like, they didn't even have a display for Blu-rays. They just had sort of a bin, and this was like near the top. And I was like, holy crap, I just watched that. I'm going to buy that. Because it was just around the time I watched it for the first time. I had a friend who'd recommended it to me. It's a friend who recommended lots of movies and things to me. But what was a little different is that even though he's into a lot of different stuff, he wasn't necessarily an anime fan. But this was an anime he knew and recommended to me. And yeah, I was really impressed because I think it's also a good movie to watch or show somebody that isn't really into anime because, I mean, obviously it has some of the anime conventions, but it really bucks a lot of those trends too. It's not really like a lot of animes. it does have a little bit of the over-the-top action things, and it has some of the weird facial expressions and stuff. But for the most part, it's just sort of telling a gritty urban story with a bit of the magic realism elements thrown into it. So I don't know. I'm not saying this is going to make a non-anime fan love anime all of a sudden, but I do think it's a good example of something that's a little different from sort of the typical, or at least what people picture when they think about anime.
Yeah, it's a very, very touching story, and it's not nearly as much, tentacles and stuff.
Right. I mean, you've got the dynamic between the two orphan brothers or whatever, which is very emotional, and then you have the other thing about Kimura and his own sort of journey, which ends in tragedy because he dies too. I think he knows he's going to die, which is interesting because he knows he's got a wife and a kid he's leaving behind. But I think he knows that he's not going to get away. That he can't just... Because he does eventually kill Snake. And it's interesting, too, because it also shows how different Snake is from the old guard. And Suzuki talked about all the things that matter. Because the whole thing... Okay, so the overarching plan of Snake is that he's teamed up with the Yakuza bosses. They're going to, demolish a big part of the city, the district known as Treasure Town, or a big part of it, to put up an amusement park. And Suzuki, being the old school Yakuza that he is very much against that because, one, even though he's a criminal, he doesn't believe in doing things that overtly hurt the people in the community. And two, he just really likes that old style. He talks about boys becoming men there, at the brothels and stuff, and the old gambling houses and all that old school Yakuza stuff too. But that's another reason why you could think the movie takes place in the late 60s is because he when he's talking, there are some flashback shots of him. And it almost looks like 40s or 50s, they're the suits they're wearing and stuff. But anyway, that you can take out whatever you want from that. Also, if you trace the power of the Yakuza, it took the Yakuza a long time to become the force they were. And they kind of hit just much like Japan economically. The Yakuza were really flying in the 80s, but it was a long, steady build. They were basically just sort of a bunch of loose gangs and criminals in post-war Japan, and it took a long time to become the organized crime organization that they are with all their hierarchy and rules and stuff. That took a long time to do, and there's some good movies about that called Battles Without Love or Humanity or whatever it's called. There's about 5 or 6 of them from the early 70s. They're really good movies. They were a big influence on filmmaker William Friedkin. He was a big fan of them. He said they really influenced a lot of his work, his crime stuff work. The only thing that's hard about the movies is, one, because they're Japanese movies and you're watching them subtitled, and because a lot of these guys look and dress a lot the same, it can be very hard to remember who's who. And these are short movies. These are hour-and-a-half movies. And they're just full of people betraying each other and killing each other. And it's really hard to keep track of who's who and who's betraying who and what's going on. So sometimes, even though there's about 4 or 5, and I've seen at least 3 of them, they all kind of mix together in my mind. Because it's Battles Without Love and Humanity or like that. And then there's New One. And then there's I don't know. And they have all these different Anyway, they're fun. But they do sort of tell the origins of how the Yakuza formed, because it shows how in post-war Japan, when people really didn't have much going for them economically, there were so many people out of work and stuff, and you just had these petty criminals, and they're all trying to get by, and it's very slow how they actually form an organization. So you get a bit of that in those movies. Anyway, they're cool movies. I definitely recommend them. For a while, back when I had Shudder, they were on Shudder. So I don't know if they're still on there or if they'll show up again, but. And I remember seeing the comments under a bunch of people bitching, saying, this isn't horror. I was like, who cares? It's free content that you're getting if you already have it, and some interesting stuff. And if you don't want to watch it, don't watch it.
Right.
I don't understand why people would complain about something like that. I get it. Shudder is about horror, but them putting some non-horror stuff on there doesn't push the horror out. There's not enough room. But anyway, some people complain.
They're trying to rebrand themselves, I think, and they've incorporated a lot of non-horror stuff on there.
Sure, because they want to get as big an audience as they can.
Right.
So I think it's a good thing. I mean, they'll still keep the focus on horror, so I think that's fine.
I wouldn't be surprised they completely rebranded everything.
Very possibly.
Because I'm with a lot of these guys, they do the week free, free trial, whatever period that is. And, a lot of these people, they're watching those Joe Bob things, and they're not paying any money. They're just doing a free trial, watching Joe Bob, and then they're done.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's the hook, because I never heard of that. And in if you get Shudder in Canada, you can't even watch that.
You can't see any of them.
There's no like live stream option.
Really? Huh.
Yeah. So I didn't even know what people were talking about one time, like a year ago when I still had it, because that just wasn't on there. It was just like Netflix or anything else. There were movies and you could stream them. There wasn't any event or anything. So anyway, yeah. I guess it's cool that that's popular, but I never watched it or knew much about it.
Is that tied to your your location? Like how do they know?
Yeah, I guess it's an IP address.
IP address. That's what I was trying to think of. Yeah.
I still don't understand like what the reasoning behind it. Just like I can't like go to NBC's site and watch like anything. It's all like blocked. You know, like
couldn't go to Comedy Central either. I don't think.
Right. Yeah. It's like you want to watch this as SNL sketch. Well, no, I can't. It's all blocked.
It's all copyright.
Yeah. It's dumb. But yeah, so also speaking of like how it parallels real life and organized crime, is the whole idea is that the Yakuza is not going to really have much power once this place goes up, and that kind of parallels Las Vegas, because Las Vegas was very much controlled by the mob for a few decades, but they eventually got pushed out by big conglomerates, which continues to this day. To this day, like as far as I know, unless things have changed, like organized crime has almost no foothold in Vegas. Because they weren't pushed out by the cops. They were pushed out by conglomerates and corporations and stuff. Really shows how the balance of power has changed in our world. Which, I mean, I don't know, is good, but also sort of scary. It's not like I'm rooting for violent criminals that like can consolidate their power through intimidation and violence. But at the same time, it's kind of scary that like nowadays, like companies can do all the same things just by like buying everything.
Mm-hmm. Got a real grassroots mafioso.
Yeah.
Support your local gangster.
Yeah, which is sort of what's going on here. And when the Yakuza first arrived, they're of course pushing out that local gang. Mm. And you get some insight into Kimura's character too, because even though he's young and ambitious and out to prove himself, it shows that he's not just some hothead. Because when he has that initial encounter with Chaco and those guys, he just walks away from it, and the guys with him are like, "What? Aren't we even going to rough him up?" Because he knows, like, it doesn't make any sense to just cause a big public scene. That's no good for them. And then later, he gets what he wants. He manages to get to one of them, gets them to sell Chaco out, and even though that guy cooperated with them, they still kill him and cut his ears off too. And it's a pretty good scene too, because he's like, "I'm what you wish you were, a real Yakuza." Because the whole thing is the guy like sells out Chaco because he thinks maybe he can join up with them, but they were never going to let him. And it is so much old school Yakuza that when they show up to Chaco, they deliver the ears in a nice ornamental box. Like that is so very much like what the Yakuza at least used to do. I don't know if they still do, but they would do that shit. They would deliver things like that, like a finger or an ear in the box. Finger's a big deal. They didn't get into the movies, but that's another thing that shows up in those other movies is like, if you're a Yakuza and you fuck up and you don't want to get killed or whatever, and you want to show like that you're sorry, you cut off a finger. Mm. That's a big part of being a Yakuza. It's cutting off fingers to atone.
So were there Yakuza with like one finger on each hand? Like, I mean, I've been fucking up hard.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if it's like a 3-strike policy. It's like, okay, you don't need to mutilate yourself anymore. Clearly, you're just a fuck up.
I just went ahead and took the whole hand on this side just to save you the time.
Yeah, but yeah. I know I'm jumping around a bit, but I really love the opening like 10 minutes of this movie too. It just introduces you to the city and everything. You get a feel for everything so well. You get that chase where the Dawn and Dusk brothers show up and think they're going to muscle in, and they have that chase. It's just a really great scene, and something that would be very difficult to do live action. And this is where sometimes, like, again, I don't think anything is better than anything else. I just think sometimes, like, when they make live action versions of animated movies, I'm thinking I don't know how you're going to improve on that. And this is kind of like, I wouldn't see the benefit of, say, doing a live action version of this movie, because there were some things you just can't recreate. And like a scene like that is just so great. Them like hopping around and being on the moving vehicles and stuff. And it's all really good. There's some quiet, sort of laid-back music by somebody named Plaid in the movie. I'm not familiar with Plaid, but it fits.
Is that the electronic music?
Yeah, that's the electronic style music that you hear.
A lot of that reminded me of. You ever heard of Aphex Twin?
Yep. Yeah.
A lot of it reminded me of that type stuff.
Yeah, that is part of the '90s too, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, but in a good way, as we said. Yeah, so there is some like also computer graphics going on in here. Most of them don't stick out too bad. They do some good cell shading over it to integrate it in. So it looks pretty good. I mean, this is 2006. This is some pretty sophisticated animation. Really great looking movie, as I've said.
Very polished, and the manga is black and white, right?
Yeah.
So really, I mean, that's kind of what pops is the colors and
the colors, and it's very fluid. The movements are very fluid, which I like. And it has like a sort of different sort of motion from other animes. It does, even though I say it's fluid, it also has like a herky-jerky quality too, because of the animation style. Some of the characters, like the way they're drawn, the way their angles are, makes their movements look a little weird and different, but not in a bad way. It's just sort of like a signature type way that I really dig. Like sometimes when you'll see like the characters like flip up on the buildings and stuff, like it's not done in like a realistic way,
right?
But it fits the vibe. It's almost like you're missing a couple frames, like they skipped a couple frames. In fact, I'm almost positive that's what they did.
Yeah.
But it looks good. And it looks good for the combat too. And again, part of like the amalgamation of different Asian cities, there's a part early in the movie where they're at like a Muay Thai match to like do pickpocketing. But it's like bare knuckle Muay Thai because, things get real in Treasure Town. But really, that's the what's going on here. You have the struggle between black and white, where black really wants to sort of be of the streets and be white's protector. But you also realize that even though white has a lot of fun in Treasure Town, he really doesn't belong there, and he yearns for something because he's saying like the money they're saving up so that they can go get a house on a beach somewhere. That's really what white wants, and black hates him by saying, "Oh yeah, that's what we're going to do." But that's actually at the time that's not what black wants. This is Black says, this is my town. He wants to stay and he wants to rise and he wants to become like a bigger player in it. So you have that tug between them. Like he has his responsibility and his affection for white, but he still has his own sort of motivations for what he wants to accomplish in the city. And eventually what he has to come to terms with is like, it's just too dangerous a place for somebody like white to be in. And at first he tries to cut himself off from that. The first time it happens is with Chaco, actually, because when everybody hears the news, because they're on the street, they hear the news that Chaco had the ears delivered to him, and White's saying, "Oh, that's really bad" and stuff. Like, what does Black say? Black says, "Well," and he says, "But Chaco be okay, right?" And Black says, "No." He's like way in over his head on this, but then he goes, "Well, oh well, he's kind of an idiot. I never liked him anyway." And then he does the same thing when the cops take White away. He says, "You're just holding me back. You're just holding me back. I don't need you. I'll get along better without you." So he really tries to harden himself and show that he doesn't need anybody. But of course he does, because he completely comes apart without White. Which again, I know isn't like amazingly deep or amazingly subtle, but it's good. It's a good sort of simple story about how two characters, yin and yang, balance each other, how they really need each other, and how it, his character name is Black. We get it. He has a lot of darkness inside him, and it's going to consume him without White's influence and without White being there. But it comes across really nicely, I think.
Yeah, that may be the only. It's not a complaint. It's kind of heavy-handed in that regard about the yin and yang aspect of it, because I think he's even wearing it has a yin yang on his like hoodie or something at one point.
Yeah.
They just kind of beat you over the head with. This is the good one, this is the bad one.
Yeah,
and
they do. Just like how the end part with the Minotaur is probably a little dragged out.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, I don't mind it but, it's kind of just being repetitive at that point, where the dark side of him is trying to just pull him in and say, you don't need anyone, you can be strong, you can be great. Like, we already kind of knew that, and now they're just doing it a little bit more.
That's what I was going to say earlier. It's all, like, symbolic. It's all just his inner struggle.
Right.
With his split personality, whatever's going on there.
Right.
Trying to bring him over to the dark side when, White's trying to
But they do leave some weird. They do some interesting things to make it a little bit more tangible. Because there's a part where later on, where the arcade scene where we have the kids talking, they talk about the Minotaur. Like the Minotaur is also this urban legend, so he always has like a tangible footprint in the real world too. Even though we know the Minotaur is actually just some subverted personality of Black, where when he's going over to the dark side, like when we see the Minotaur take out the two aliens, that's him. But other people do talk about the Minotaur, and of course White has it. And the other thing I was going to say is like, while the movie, as I said, I wouldn't put it in the realm of fantasy. It's more magic realism. You do wonder a bit about White, because he has some moments where it's almost like, I hate to say it, we brought, much as I like Stephen King has this thing about making like characters that are like mentally different or disabled or whatever, kind of like mystical. There's a little bit of that going on with White. Because there's parts where, like, when White and Black are separated, if Black is fighting and hurting somebody, White kind of feels it. Yeah. It's like he has a psychic link to him. You'll see him start to cry or something like that. And it's the same thing like when Snake first releases the three aliens. That's what, by the way, the aliens are what the big three almost supernaturally strong henchmen are called. When they're released, like White like shivers and says like something bad is happening. So they do give him an almost like sort of psychic quality, which I don't know. I guess it doesn't break anything down or ruin anything, but it does cross a few lines. I don't mind it though. It's okay.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's in a lot of movies and stories, right? It's like,
sure.
Oh, that character, like they perceive things differently. It's almost like they have psychic abilities. Okay, fine. Not
you can explain away a lot of stuff.
Yeah. It should be noted though that White actually is the one that kills the first alien. For White, for all his like peacefulness and disconnection from violence, like he realizes what needs to be done and he burns the fucker alive.
Mm-hmm.
And you can even see that he is maybe seeping up some of Black's darkness, because after he does it, he's kind of like in a trance and he's just like, the whole city's going to burn. Like, you're like, oh shit. Like, he's going to go over the dark side too. There won't be any yin and yang. It'll be all yang. And, so maybe that's the other thing. Like, the city is like, it's corrupting both of them. It's making Black more violent and dark, but it's also like sucking out like White's soul. I don't know. Because that's the other thing. He gets in the trance. He's like, I hate this city. I hate it. Even though usually he's so positive and upbeat and seems to enjoy it.
Was that butterfly that he killed?
Do they have names?
Yeah, dragon, butterfly, and tiger.
I don't know. There was probably markings on them to distinguish it that I can't remember. So it might have been. Because I don't think they ever refer to them by names. And when he talks to them in some bizarre language.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's something written on them or some marking or something that distinguishes them. I can't remember now.
I know the two at the end. One has a shotgun, one has a crossbow.
Yeah.
They're like action figures. You have to differentiate based on their weapon.
Yeah, even though they all at first carried like a machete or something, right?
Yeah.
Which is what White gets stabbed with. So here's the part of the movie that almost doesn't logically make sense to me. So again, White shows that even though he has this weird disconnect from reality sometimes and can flake out, he understands, and when he was being chased, that this is somebody that could kill him. So he's running with real fear. And the thing catches him and stabs him. And then the cops show up and it takes off. That's Sawada and Fujimura. But then what happens? He's already been stabbed. How the hell does he get away from them? He's in a dead-end alley, where that's why he was trapped in the first place. And he's been stabbed and he's bleeding a ton. But he gets away from them. He makes it all the way back to his home, to Black. I don't understand what happened there. How did a severely injured child in a dead-end alley elude the two cops that were there to help him? But he somehow gets by them because, like, eventually they do find him, but they only find him at the clinic later. Like,
good question.
And it's kind of funny what Black says to him too, because like Black sees him, he's like impaled, and he's lying literally in a pool of his own blood. He says, "Am I going to die, Black?" And Black's like, "No, White. People don't die so easily." It's like they don't go out so easy. I'm thinking, easy? He's like bled like half of his blood out onto the asphalt there. And I mean, I get it. He's just trying to keep White's spirits up, but like just the way he delivers it almost makes it sound like he believes it. It's like, oh, you just got impaled. You'll be fine. But he does live. And then right after that, the doctor comments and says, like, it's a miracle he didn't die because he lost so much blood. So,
Yeah, I thought he was going to die there.
Yeah, like, then that's the tone of the movie, right? Like sometimes in some movies that we talked about, like child endangerment, the kid's not going to die. This movie actually makes you think he could die, and he doesn't. But then you might think that Black is definitely going to die. Black doesn't either. They make it out, but like Suzuki doesn't make it out. Kimura doesn't make it out. The only one that makes it out is Chaco. It's a scene that happens so fast you might even forget it. But after the scene where Black shows up and rescues Chaco or whatever, where he goes nuts and beats up Kimura and the other Yakuzas, earlier in the scene when they were talking, when they were threatening him, they were threatening his mother specifically.
Yeah.
You see later that he's on the train with his mother leaving. And he says, like, this town might be too much for me. So that's how you know Chaco gets out. Like, he's there with an older woman, so it's clearly his mother. So he's thinking, yeah, like, my mother's threatened, I'm leaving. So he gets out, and he makes it out. But other people don't make it out.
Yeah.
Nothing happens to the boss, though. I guess he goes on. Because you get the idea that Snake is so ambitious that he might eventually just kill that boss if he feels like it, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't get to that, and we get the feeling, okay, I guess the boss is okay. Like, his plans fell through. And you do wonder, too. Like, Snake was the architect of that weird kitty land, or whatever they called it. But there's no fixing that, either. That's still there. Like, they did demolish that part of Treasure Town. There is, like, the big amusement park. I thought it was kind of interesting that when he decides that Black has become so much of a problem that he has to kill him and sends the remaining 2 aliens at him, he sends them right into that place. Like, isn't that bad for business? Like, the crowd goes running out of there. 2 big crazy guys in weird costumes are there with a shotgun shooting at people. So I'm thinking, like, that seems pretty bad for business, buddy, if all you care about is profit. Anyway.
I would say yes, that is bad for business.
Yeah. So, like, there is a lot left up in the air, but you do get the idea, because, like, Treasure Town will endure, and the people will go on, but Black and White do get out. It's not explained how, but they do get their house on the beach, which seems to really benefit them. So, like, that's how it ends. It seems like that's what they needed. And you wonder what the cops are going to do now. The cops are still there, and there'll probably still be some petty criminals. Some things will just go on. But, yeah. But Kimura pops Snake, and it's interesting what he says to Snake, because he's just like, well, why are you doing this? And he says, like, as inspired by Suzuki, like, truth and love or something like that. And I like Snake's response. It's just like, because it means, those things don't mean anything to him. And he's just like, dies. It's almost anticlimactic, but I like it.
Yeah. I think the ending's kind of anticlimactic.
Because they're just suddenly, inexplicably at the beach. Like, we don't know how it happened. It is a bit annoying that we don't know how it happened, right? Like, they don't even, like, give us some half-ass scene of, like, the cops driving him out there or something.
It is so geared up, and then it just ends, then it's there.
Yeah. It almost makes me wonder if, like, they did get out or if they're just fucking imagining it,
Yeah. That's, oh, shit. I forget the term for that, but yeah, like, it's all a dream.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to believe they got out. Because the whole idea was, like, Treasure Town isn't a terrible place. Good people live there, but, it's just no life for kids. As is pointed out by the cops to them a couple times. And also, you have that feeling that, like, White doesn't enjoy it the way Black does. That he just sort of wants to humor Black because Black is his, brother and he loves him and stuff. There's even a quick scene where he's longingly watching school children, right? There's, like, kids having, like, their gym session outside, and he's watching them through the fence. And it's like he kind of wishes he could be part of that world, just be like a normal kid. And then Black distracts him by, talking about the tree that he tried to plant. But it does give a good sense of how, like, and it is early on when they're giving the little voiceover part where Sawada's asking, he's like, stray cats. He's just like, this place is their playground. And he's like, but underestimate them and then you'll kiss asphalt. But it's true. Like, the city very much is their playground. You see how they use it. They're, like, parkouring around the place and doing what they want. And you understand why there is appeal to that. Like, imagine you were, like, 14, 15, and you didn't have parents or adults telling you what to do. And you lived it was a dangerous life, but there's a lot of comfort in it, too. Now, I know I'm going to really reach here, and this is one of those things where, like, maybe people think I'm just trying to show that I read a lot or something, because it's a weird reach. But the Victor Hugo book, Les Miserables, very long book, huge book. But there's an early part in the book when you're first introduced to the character Marius. For those who don't know, Marius is the young man. He's probably about 19 or 20. He's the one that Valjean's adopted daughter Cosette eventually falls in love with, which is a big part of the story. But also, Marius, he's tied up in the movement of all these students that want to fight the government, doing their own like rebellion thing, which is of course what goes on in the book. Anyway, when you're introduced to Marius, the whole idea is like he's only about 18 or 19, and he's kind of living on the street. He has like a room that he rents that he lives in, but the idea and one of the reasons why the book is so long is because Hugo will often go on very long digressions. So he does a bit of a digression here, just talking about how, for a young man, it can actually be enjoyable to be poor. And I won't get into everything, but the stuff he says makes a lot of sense to I feel happy in their lives. Like they live in like they live in a broken down car in an empty lot, and they don't have very much, and it's a struggle. But there's a lot of freedom to it, and it comes with also being young. And it does even remind me of my own life in some ways, because sometimes I think about things I want to do and places I want to go, and I feel so tied down by my life. And it comes down to like I hate like this cliche thing when people talk about like what it's like to have a life led in the pursuit of like owning a lot of stuff and possessions. It's like eventually the possessions end up owning you. Yeah, I know how it sounds, but it is kind of true. In some ways, I'm really being owned by a lot of my possessions. I feel like I live a lot of my life in the pursuit of stuff. I like my stuff. I love my books and stuff. But at the same time, I'm always worried about what could happen to my stuff. I mean, I'm not going to live in this apartment forever, so I think about like how difficult it would be to move all my fucking stuff out of here. Obviously, I think about like maybe in a couple of years, if I do live in Japan, I can't take all my stuff with me. What's going to happen to my stuff? So there is a certain freedom, I think, like they said, about being poor, at least when you're young, because you don't have all this stuff, and you just sort of live sort of a cool, carefree life. And I really get that sense in this. So I know it's a reach, people, for the classic literature there, but it did remind me a bit of this passage they wrote about Marius, because it was kind of about how, Marius was poor. He lived in like this single crappy room. He didn't really own anything, but there was sort of an excitement to it and a freedom to it. And I think that's very much that's what Black and White are living. Even though there's a bad side to it, a downside, and some dangers. Like the upside just feels so fun.
Yeah, less responsibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
And as they say, like Treasure Town, like has a lot of appealing things to it. There's all sorts of interesting places to go and things to see, and there are like things that they can work around. Like they have the scene with the old guy that they know. Like there's a bathhouse there, so they can go and get clean when they need to. So yeah, you have that old guy every once in a while there to dispense some wisdom. That's actually the very opening scene, is him talking to them. You don't know what happens to him either, but I guess he'd be happy though, because he wanted them to get out of that life. So I suppose he'd be happy. But yeah, Kimura, love and truth, Snake. Huh. That's what he says. He goes, huh, and then he shoots him. It's like, does not compute. But that's another sort of tragic thing about Kimura's death. Remember what his fucking girlfriend says to him?
Mm-mm.
So they're packing the car. He knows they're probably not going to get away, but they're packing the car. He's like, okay, he's killed Snake. He wants to get them the hell out. And he's trying to be happy and talk about the future, like how nice it'll be to get out of the city and he can play catch with the kid and stuff like that. Then, agents of Snake come along and gun him down. And then you don't see him, but you hear his voice. And what he says is he asks her to name the kid something like Motoko or something like that, right? He says it means truth. And I guess apparently that's a boy's name, because she says never. I would never have a boy. And it's like, ouch, that's the last thing he gets to hear before he dies?
No.
Like, I somewhat understand why she says it. She's the only real female character in a very male-centric movie, right? And what they're showing us really is the truth that, like, this is... Not that there aren't girls like this, but it's a very male thing. Like, Yakuza are all male. Typically, street gangs and punks are male and stuff, and these boys. And she's kind of showing, like, this is kind of what she thinks of all that. Like, how she would definitely not want a male that falls into the same thing. It's difficult for her to be, in a relationship with a Yakuza. in all his stupid male fantasies and stuff. So I understand why she thinks that way, but what a thing to say to him as he fucking dies.
Right. I agree.
She could have just said, yes, I will, even if she had no intention of it. And she might
I'm not doing that.
And she might still have a boy. But it's left open-ended. But yeah, I thought that was pretty harsh. But yeah, she's the only female character in the movie. Which is not a criticism. It's the way the movie's set up. So it's not like I'll get there on my own steam one way or another. But thanks, Skinny. Because yes, I'd like to see other places. Japan's my number one place, but it would definitely be cool to visit other places. We shall see. I'm still young in certain contexts. I'm still young.
Oh yeah, man, it'd be great to go and like see Hong Kong and stuff.
Yeah,
like all in like take like a month.
Yeah, for
Just
sure.
travel all over Asia.
Yeah. Well, I might still get to Bangkok sometime in the next little while. We'll see how that goes. That's a priority. We'll see what I can do about it. Although right now, apparently it's not a good time to be in Bangkok right now, because right now they're having like a ton of trouble with smog. There's like crazy smog levels there right now.
And if I go, I'm going to tell them I'm from Canada.
Apparently a lot of Americans abroad do that.
Yes, they do.
I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. I don't care, but if it works, that's good.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as necessary. Like in certain countries, like lots of countries really like Americans. Actually, probably one of the most interesting ones, and this is an Asian country, and I don't know how well known this is, because a lot of people think, obviously, of the history between the nations. Oh, they wouldn't. But the Vietnamese adore Americans.
Yeah.
They love them and their culture, and they're always thrilled to meet them and stuff. And people think, oh, but they had that war and stuff. But they're like, no, water under the bridge, I guess. Because, yeah, the Vietnamese really, at least as far as Asian countries go, they really like Americans. And they love their culture, and they're always pleased to meet them. So, yeah, I assume most Koreans, not North Koreans.
Right.
You're the great enemy to North Korea. Yeah, sure. But don't worry about it, because pretty much everybody's their enemy. I mean, I guess the U.S. can feel that, yes, they're the number one enemy, but North Korea's got quite a few enemies. Plus, they wouldn't make a distinction, right? That's the one time they wouldn't make a distinction. Imagine I got to go to North Korea for something, and I told them I was Canadian. They would not, to me, that's America Junior to them. They wouldn't give a fuck.
I've heard stories of people like comedians and things like that have gotten, offered lots of money to go and do like private shows and stuff over there for like, Kim Jong-un and stuff.
Yeah, you were like, will I ever get out?
I know, man. I don't know that I could do it. Well, depending on what kind of money we're talking about, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be super interested in seeing everything, but...
And like, apparently he's a big gamer or a fan of gaming, so he's done that with a bunch of gamers. I know Orc told me that.
Yeah.
Once upon a time.
That's true. But, well, actually, what I meant about, like, them's, like, not giving a fuck about you being Canadian, I mean, like, them. I don't mean the average North Korean, because I didn't even know this until maybe a couple of years ago. The average North Korean has so little knowledge of the outside world.
Right.
They don't even know where other countries are in relation to each other. They don't even get to see a goddamn map. Because, like, yeah, like one of the few things that came out of Korea that was like positive about the rest of the world was like, it was some like weird amateur movie, something about somebody's travels in Canada. It was like and again, they don't have much movies there, right? There's not much to show the public. So back in the 80s, there was like some movie to circulate that you could go to the theater and watch. And it was like about somebody's trip to Canada, whether it was real or not, I don't know. But it was a well-received movie and people liked it. But in general, it didn't really show much about the real Canada. I don't think any of it was shot in Canada. And the people watching the movie didn't have any sense of where Canada was or was like. A lot of them thought Canada was in Europe, apparently. So, and that continues to this day. Like, they don't have much, the propaganda is so tightly controlled, they don't even know where countries are in relation to each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's all intentional, right? You keep them stupid and they'll be more, subservient.
Yeah.
I don't think it takes much to be like killed there, executed. I don't think.
Oh God, no. And like, even though the populace somewhat obviously lives in fear of that, they also sort of accept it as the norm, right? It's like, well,
that's all they know. Yeah.
Like, You heard about Bill at the factory. They took him away and shot him. They're like, well, Bill shouldn't have said what he said. They're not like, that's horrifying. They're like, well, you can't step out of line. Like, that's their day-to-day life.
Bill shouldn't have got his hand caught in that machine, That's his fault.
He cost production. I mean, it is very sad, of course. But I guess that's the shocking thing is, like, obviously that kind of stuff has happened throughout history. But to think, like, that we think of how open the world is now, how connected we all are, right. But how isolated that country still is. And it's by design.
Mm-hmm.
Which really sucks. But yeah, we'll see. I'd love to, visit all sorts of Asian places. Maybe we'll start with Bangkok and go from there.
Yep, I've heard good things. Of course, Tokyo would be like the holy grail, right? But that'd be like...
That's for me. Yeah, that's the holy grail for me. Like, I don't know if I would live there or if I'd live in another city, but I'd want to live in a fairly big city if I go there. One of the bigger places. I mean, Tokyo is the biggest city in the world.
I think it'd be really expensive to live there, wouldn't it?
What's that? Sorry?
I just said, wouldn't it be really expensive to live there?
Yep. It has one of the highest cost of living in the world, Tokyo.
Yeah,
but other places, like for instance, Bangkok has a very low cost of living. Like you can get all sorts of shit done in Bangkok, but it's like super cheap. I just remember I was talking to Shun Li about it, the girl I know in Bangkok, and like a lot of people, she doesn't have like a bathtub; she has just a shower, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she was showing me like an online the site of some company that will install bathtubs for them, and it's like $50. Period. Like flat $50. Don't even put tax on it. It's like we'll come in for for the equivalent of what $50 like Canadian is or whatever. We will install a bathtub for you. Like the stuff there's dirt cheap and food and stuff. So that's the other thing. Like, I mean, the only thing really standing my way is the price of the ticket there. Because getting there, I'd have a place to stay and food and stuff wouldn't be that bad at all. It's just the ticket. The cheapest you can find is maybe about $1,200, and that's on the low end. Because if you're going like below $1,500, you're going for the flight from hell. You're going like flying from like Halifax to Montreal, and then maybe to like some part of Japan, and then on to Bangkok with like no time in between. Just go, go, go. It's like over 30 hours of travel, like no time to stop or sleep or do anything. You're just on the plane off. Like as soon as you get off that plane, like in somewhere in Japan, you have like less than an hour to get on the other plane and stuff.
That's a nightmare.
And that's after you've done the Montreal to Tokyo or whatever flight, which is like 20 some hours. Yeah.
Would you go across the Pacific? Is that which way the plane would go?
Yeah, that's.
It wouldn't go. Yeah, it wouldn't go the other way.
Yeah, I'd go west to Montreal and then west across the rest of Canada and the Pacific, which is just an insanely long flight. It's hard to believe a plane could go that far in one go, but it can, because that's just so much. That's the other thing. Speaking of like not knowing, this has nothing to do with ignorance, but that's the other thing. Like when I've talked to her about like travel and stuff, like I think I've impressed upon her now, but for a long time, like she did not understand like how massive a country Canada is. Like I had to tell her, I was like, I live closer to Scotland than British Columbia. That's a shorter distance.
That's crazy.
And that's the whole fucking Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
So that's how massive Canada is. I was like, okay, you know how big Thailand is on the map? Okay, you can put 15 or 16 of those in Canada. So, yeah.
Is that it? I thought it'd be more.
Yeah, I think it's like you can put France in 14 times, and France is slightly bigger than Thailand, I'd say. Actually, France is quite a bit. Yeah, it would probably maybe even be like 20 times for. Yeah. Anyway, and so much of it is empty space.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like so much of it is like uninhabited north. Oh man, speaking of like stuff you see on Twitter, like so not too long ago. Because of the news, I'm sure whether you wanted to know or not, you know that like who is it, Prince Harry or whoever it is, the one that married the American or whatever, like how they're stepping away from the royal family for a while or something. So they're going to move to Canada, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some idiot in the New Yorker wrote some sort of article about it, and like in like the headline was something like about how Canadians, I don't know what Canadians he talked to, were like happy about this royal couple coming because they would add some razzle dazzle to our country, which he referred to as like something like vast and bone chillingly cold. Now, I'm not saying we don't have days like that or parts of that in the country, but we have seasons. And we have and most of Canadians, 90% of us live in the southern part where, yeah, we have winter, but it's not bone-chillingly cold. I mean, yes, if you live up in the Northwest Territories, yeah, sure. Or Nunavut or Yellowknife or whatever. But I mean, yeah, so apparently like a whole bunch of people got after him, though, which is good. I'm not saying like called for him to be fired, but we're just like what are you talking about? Like, it's just so annoying when people sound off.
That all sounds like his opinion, too. Like, he didn't actually talk to anyone.
Yeah, I just love the idea that he thinks that like Canadians in general think it's really great that this stupid royal couple's going to come and inject some razzle dazzle into our boring country.
I don't know why anybody gives a shit about the royal family anymore. I mean,
we really don't. I'm not saying like if they showed up somewhere, people wouldn't come see them, but I mean,
I'm sure they would.
We're not just like, oh, geez, because I mean, yeah, I mean, Prince, the old Prince, he's still around. Charles.
Oh, yeah.
Charles has come here a few times, and back in the day when he had Diana, it was sort of a big deal, I guess. But I mean, I don't know. If they lived here, I don't think anybody would freak out over it. If they want to live here, they can live here.
Harry married the black girl. So where are they going in Canada?
I don't even know. I'll have to look into it.
Is it Harry? Yeah, it's Harry, right?
Yeah, I don't know. There's William and there's Harry.
William, yeah, he's the other one, married to the other.
I don't remember who's older.
I think Harry's the younger one. So,
yeah.
like, Harry's not getting the throne anyway. So,
yeah, William will be king after Charles. When the Queen finally dies and she's still alive and good health.
When?
Yeah, no,
she's like 112 years old.
I know. Good health. I wish her good health. Long may she reign. But when she finally dies, Charles, who's already quite old himself, will get to be king, and he'll probably kick off pretty quick because he's not from the healthy part of the family.
Yeah, and then he's riddled with like STDs and stuff too. So.
Yeah. Wanker.
Have they said where they're going? They're going to like Toronto.
I don't know. I would assume they would go, to probably one of the major cities. I can't imagine somebody of their tastes like not like being able to live in they'd have to live somewhere like, with all the major stuff. They're not going to like quietly retire to Banff.
Is it Toronto? Is that how am I supposed to pronounce it? Toronto?
No.
It's not. Okay.
Toronto.
Oh. Okay.
Sometimes, like somebody like Don Cherry would say Toronto, so that's kind of like a colloquialism. But I mean, it's pronounced Toronto.
I didn't know if that was maybe the locals said it a certain way.
Nothing drives me more nuts than people that pronounce Calgary as Calgary. These people are insane. And I mean, Canadians do this. There are Canadians that say Calgary. I'm like, what the hell's wrong with you?
I hate when people pronounce it Houston instead of Houston.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, there's apparently a really famous street in Portland that is, if you call it Houston, they will like kick you out of their city.
I can believe it. Of course, there's always the ongoing debate of your most divided state, Missouri. Is it Missouri or Missouri?
Or Nevada or Nevada.
Mm.
It's actually Nevada, which I sound like a retard saying it like that. But
Nevada. That sounds kind of like some accents here. We say like water, or we'd say water.
Mm-hmm.
Or new water, goodbye.
Water? That's Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I don't know much about that area at all as far as accents go.
It's really strange. It's not a very big area, but there's lots of different accents like Boston, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh.
I didn't even know about Philadelphia either until like I saw an SNL sketch where they were trying to talk Philly accents. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't really know that.
With The Wire, I learned about the
Baltimore.
Baltimore, yeah.
With The Wire, I learned Baltimore is a fucking hellhole.
Yeah, who knew, right? Who knew it was such a piece of shit?
I mean, in many ways, it is. It has some really. It's to this day, it still has some really bad crime. Baltimore.
I didn't know. I mean, I've been to the outskirts around Washington D.C. area, but
yeah, I've been pretty close too. I was in Washington, and I was pretty close to Baltimore, but yeah. Because I mean, I always knew there were certain cities, so obviously, like parts of L.A., almost all of Philadelphia, parts of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
It's South Chicago, right?
Yeah, I've heard LA has really got a problem with homeless people right now. I haven't been in like 15 years, so it wasn't that bad when I saw it last. But
yeah, I don't know if I'd ever go to LA. I'd have to have a really good reason.
and they've apparently like legalized, or not legalized, but they don't like crack down on like public drug use, like heroin and stuff. So you
In Los
just,
Angeles?
yeah.
Oh man.
And like San Francisco too, I think. It's, you've heard about the open defecation problems, and
Yes.
sounds really gross.
Yeah, it really does.
There's an app you can get for San Francisco that will track the shit on the streets. Like it'll tell you where not to go because there's like turds all over the street.
Wow. And yet San Francisco always marketed itself as this amazing, awesome place.
Oh,
I mean, that's how all places try to market themselves. I just mean San Francisco has always just been really uppity about it, right?
isn't it like one of the most expensive places in America to live too?
Yeah, but they're like, they're like hipper and cooler than
Yeah.
that's always sort of been their image. I mean, I get it. They're coasting on like a reputation from decades ago. Like, yes, San Francisco, you were the shit like in the late 60s, early 70s, but that's a long fucking time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Things have moved on and changed, but they still think that, yeah, we're like the cultural center of the world. I don't think so. Rice-A-Roni, okay, sure.
Yeah.
It's not as blind blowing as it was when it came out.
Do people still get that reference? Do people still eat rice-a-roni?
I don't know. I'm old enough to still use it.
Yeah, I haven't had it in a while.
Treat, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, in many ways, the director of this movie has lived a life that I'm because it's so Japanese centric. I'm sort of jealous of. In that, like, since he's been about 23, he's lived in Japan, and obviously he's fluent in the language and can write it and stuff. And he's had a very interesting career because he's not necessarily just a filmmaker. In fact, he started doing like visual effects and stuff like that, and he worked on things like The Abyss and Total Recall.
Oh wow, that's cool.
As I said, he did all sorts of cool stuff for like what's it called? Universal Studios, most notably Back to the Future: The Ride. He even briefly worked with Sega when they were trying to do like motion capture in the early 90s. He co-directed and animated the ride film Megalopolis Tokyo City Battle, which I don't know what that is, but it sounds cool. But yeah, he always seemed to be on the peripheral of cool stuff like that. And actually, way back in like 1995, he worked on like some sort of like an early version of a film of Tekkonkinkreet. Let's see, because he actually met Toyo Matsumoto way back then when he was introduced by a friend. And here's where he's talking about mythical blah blah blah. That was it. I was hooked. I cried many times reading it. Also, new experience for me to be moved to tears by manga. Remember 97, blah, 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 software. Yeah, they made like some sort of 4-minute movie of it back in the 90s. But then it was like put on the back burner for a long time. The Animatrix, I think because the Animatrix sold so well, I think probably really helped him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ultimately developed and produced 8 of the 9 Animatrix segments, the lone exception being a CG animated short created by Square Pictures. Blah blah blah. But yeah, so Tekkonkinkreet was the first thing he directed. What's he done since then? Another short film. Okay. Yeah, he did direct a live action Japanese film called Heaven's Door in 2009. But I don't know anything about it. Didn't do that well at the box office. Another short film, 2015, a full film called Harmony. I don't know if that's animated or live action or not.
I haven't heard of any of these before.
And he's also worked as an English translator, translating some of Taiyo Matsumoto's works into English. Anyway, so he's had quite the interesting life.
Yeah.
Look at that, he worked on M. Butterfly. But yeah, very interesting life, and something I'm sort of jealous of in a way. Because he got to do creative stuff and live in Japan. But yeah, there is an all-in-one volume of this, and that's what I was listening to. It was released in 2006, so I probably sometime shortly after I first saw this movie, maybe 2000 or 2008, that I didn't read it, as I said, but I just sort of flipped through it. But it is something now that it's on my mind again that I might look for.
Do you like Mr. Baseball?
I'm not sure what that is. Is that a Japanese thing? It sounds.
That's a Tom Selleck vehicle where he goes to Japan to play baseball.
Ah, okay. Yeah, because I know they love baseball over in Japan. They've got their own leagues and stuff, and even some of the best players come over here, right, and do very well here in the major leagues here. So yeah, I know Japan really likes baseball, and that's the other thing. I always talk about how like boring baseball is and how it sucks, but if I was in the right environment in Japan, if there was like a local team that people liked, I could see myself maybe going to a game or two or something. Who knows?
Baseball is just like something that's happening while you're doing other stuff. Like you're hanging out with your friends, but there's also like a baseball game going on.
Right? And then you look up every once in a while.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's a good catch. Or there's a hit. Yeah.
This shit lasts like 5 hours. I mean, come on. You're kind of hanging out,
But we talked about it a bit when we did our only non-movie episode of this. When we did the anime miniseries Fooly Cooly, how like baseball was incorporated into that too. Because again, it was just a sort of an amalgamation of the creator, like the things he likes. It's like, I like baseball, so I put baseball in there. So yeah, I always think of that. I always think of the robot with the TV head playing the baseball.
Like Battlefield Baseball. Trying to see, there's a lot of horror movies that revolve around baseball too.
That's funny. I know that there's another baseball movie. There's Mr. 3000. Remember that? That's a Mr. That's with Bernie Mac.
Bernie Mac, yeah.
Bernie Mac, and the idea is like he comes out of retirement to get his 3,000 hitter or runner, however that's thing. I haven't seen it, but I'm just thinking that's another baseball movie with Mr. in the title.
Was that in Japan?
No.
Oh.
I'm just saying it was a baseball movie and had Mr. in the title.
Kenny says Mr. Baseball is better than Mr. 3000.
Yeah, I'd take Bernie Mac over Selleck probably.
Hell, marathon both of them, a back-to-back double feature.
Yeah, I did just watch a sports movie. I watched Remember the Titans last night.
Oh, really? Wow.
It's good. I like that movie. Well, it's one of the things that's on Disney Plus. It's a Disney movie.
It's kind of edgy.
It's kind of edgy for a Disney movie because it deals with like racism and stuff and.
Yeah, that's not bad.
It's probably my favorite football movie because I'm not really into football or the movies. But by default, it's my favorite football movie. I haven't seen too many of them. Plus, it helps that one of the football movies I've seen is one of the worst things I've ever seen. Any Given Sunday, I hate that movie with every fiber of my being. God, I hate it. It like turned me against Cameron Diaz like permanently. Like that's the main reason I dislike her because I despise her in that movie. Oh God.
I want to do a commentary for that movie.
It'd just be me grumbling and complaining the whole time.
Young Ryan Gosling is in the Titans, right?
And I couldn't even remember that until I watched it. And then I wasn't even sure it was him, and then I watched in the credits that it was him. And also Hayden Panettiere when she's like 10.
Yeah.
Her character's super annoying, but
yeah.
Whatever.
Hey, Daddy, let's go play some football.
Where like he has to talk to her about how he's not going to be in the Hall of Fame because after he goes against them and they're mean and racist or whatever, and after he stood up to them, they won't be in the Hall of Fame. She's like, I wanted it so bad. It's like for him to be in the Hall of Fame.
And stuff like that really makes you wonder, like how much of it was changed, to for dramatic effect or whatever. Like,
Oh, I'm sure certain things.
I mean, can you imagine? Like, you would be ostracized in society if you did some shit like that. Like they would go like burn stuff in your yard, you know? Whatever.
Wait,
Didn't they burn crosses in that movie? I don't know. Maybe I'm getting that
no,
confused
they
with
didn't
something
burn
else.
crosses. The only the worst thing they did was like somebody like tosses a brick through his window. Somebody goes, "Hey, Coach Coon,"
That's right.
and throws a brick through his window.
I could see that happening.
Oh yeah, I mean it was right when they were ending segregation and they were integrating and it was coming together and it was all full of stuff like that.
Was that 60s?
I think it was just like 1971 or something.
Okay.
Very early 70s. It was 60s for a lot of places. This place was a little bit behind. The thing that interested me the most about it, and I know it's true because I mean I can believe it because it works this way with hockey here. It's just like how much people like in these towns like worshipped football. Period. Like their lives. Like this is high school football, and like the whole town just revolved around it. Everything was a high school football team. Like there's no such thing like where I'm from or around where like that's a job that you get paid to do. A high school football coach here on the weekends. He's not a professional with a salary who can get hired or fired. But it's a whole thing there.
Yeah, it's really a good thing when sports can bring people together.
Yeah, and I mean that's what's good about the movie, right? It really shows that how it does.
Hey, we're not that different after all.
It's interesting that it's like got the big huge guy, and he's like one of the first white characters to like be like totally like not racist, right? Like he's like he doesn't care at all. He's hanging out with the black people way before the others and stuff like, and just like like a year or two before he was like the big crazy racist guy in American History X.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize he was Wait, is that the guy that lost all the weight?
Everybody's lost all the weight. I have to assume. He used to be massive, so I assume he probably lost the weight because pretty much anybody that was big is small.
Or dead.
They either lost the weight or they died. I can't remember his name. But I mean, I know he got a little smaller because wasn't he the other guy in My Name Is Earl?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. He went on to do that.
And he was like overweight in that, but he wasn't like huge. Like he was massive back in those movies. Remember the Titans was 2000 and American History X was 98, and he was just gigantic. What's weird is he seems younger in Remember the Titans than the other one. I mean, he is playing a high school age character. I guess that counts. But he seems older in the other movie, which is weird. But he has to be the same guy. There's definitely not two guys like that. But anyway, just sort of interesting to go from like a crazy like neo-Nazi in one movie to like a guy that was like ahead of the curve in the other. But yeah, I have no idea why. I was specifically in the mood to watch it though. I hadn't seen it in a long time, but for some reason I was specifically in the mood to watch it, and I was like, hey, that's on Disney Plus, so I watched it. So I don't know. Yeah, it's a pretty good movie. The other takeaway from that movie is I have no idea what else this actor did, but the actor that played like the guy who was the captain. Yeah, well,
where he looks now.
I know. Some guys like some people like they just look odd when they're not fat anymore, right? Yeah. It's like their face imploded in on itself. Yeah, but anyway, the guy that played like the captain, the guy who in real life got had a pretty raw deal because just before their championship game, he gets crippled in a car accident, and then 10 years later, he dies in a car accident. But anyway, the guy that played him, he spends the whole movie like grimacing in the weirdest ways I've ever seen. He's always going, and yet my face cannot do it justice. Like watch that movie, and all it is him like grimacing and contorting his face and frowning and looking sour. It's so weird. Like I don't think it's part of the character. I just don't think that guy's capable of like not doing that with his face. And yet he must be in other movies, but I can't remember him. But yeah, that's the other thing I really take away from that movie is that guy like squinching up his face all the time, just wincing and grimacing. You know, it's one of the first movies where I kind of like knew who Denzel Washington was.
Yeah.
Because that was like 2000. Probably the first thing I saw him in that was in theaters. I saw that in theaters. Because, you know, this would have been way before I would have like known, like seen Glory.
Oh, yeah. Is that really what put him on the map? Was like Glory?
Yeah, he won an Oscar for that.
Oh.
For Best Supporting Actor. And then he won, I think, Best Actor for Training Day.
Yeah.
Which I don't agree with at all. But I don't care. Like, I don't care who they give those awards to. I think he's just so over the top and silly in that movie.
Yeah, it's funny. I like it.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad, but I just mean I don't think of it as like serious acting that deserves an award like that. But I don't care about those awards, so it doesn't matter to me what they do.
I didn't know you got wet. What? Angel dust, bro.
King Kong.
And yeah. What was the guy's name in that movie? The other guy.
Ethan Hawke.
Ethan Hawke, yeah. That's funny.
Snoop Dogg plays a guy like in a wheelchair in that movie.
Where he swallows a crack and they make him puke it up.
Yeah. I almost forgot about that.
Snoop Dogg's like 1,000 years old and he doesn't really look it.
No, he's aged well. Every once in a while, I see him in footage at Anaheim Ducks games.
Yeah.
His kids love hockey.
He's all over the place.
It's a show with Martha fucking Stewart.
Yeah.
But, you know, as much as, and as dumb as that is, like, I really applaud Snoop Dogg. As much as, like, people who were, like, big fans of his rap back in the day, which I'm not, so I can't really relate. So I can separate myself from that. So I don't think, oh, man, look at him now. Because all I think is he did the right thing. Rap is a young man's game. He knew he couldn't do it forever, that it wouldn't be right. And so he moved on and did other stuff. Maybe it wasn't all great, but, you know, at least he had fun doing it. And obviously, you know, he doesn't need money. He's rich as hell.
Well, he's branded himself like he is a brand, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And plenty of rappers and people have done that, but few quite as well as him. Yeah. So you can say like how he's like a joke now and it's pathetic and he used to be so cool. And just like, yeah, I know, but he can't just always do that. Like when he's 60 years old, does anyone ever hear him go, Snoop, doggy dog?
I bet he does. I bet.
I'm sure he breaks it out for special occasions, but it's not like he just tours.
He might. I don't know.
I don't think so.
Is it Snoop Lion or is it still Snoop Dogg?
Oh yeah, there was a Lion phase. Yeah, I don't know. They love changing their names.
By they, you mean?
I mean rappers.
Okay.
I don't. What do you think I meant? You think I meant like black people?
I'm trying to pigeonhole you into something here.
I meant rappers. Like Puff Daddy, Diddy Kong Racing 2 or whatever.
Diddy Kong. I think he's just Diddy now.
Mm.
That was the last I heard.
He streamlined it, simplified. Like,
wait. I don't know. Fuck it.
I mean, I get that rappers have names, and that's fine. And I know that a lot of them are dumb names, and I don't even care about that. But I have to say, like, you know, sometimes when you hear about like a rapper, especially when he got killed, right? It's like Murder MC 3000. Also, real name Gavin McCroverton, or you know, it's some like really lame name. Like Sean Combs is a cool name. You know, that could have worked on its own. Like Sean Combs isn't like a weird.
Oh no, that's not a bad name.
It's a cool name. It looks good written down. It sounds good. I'm not saying he shouldn't have done it. I'm just saying, like, most of the time when you hear about these rappers and they go real name, it's like some really lame name. You're like, yeah, I get it. Nobody's gonna put your hands in the air for that guy.
Yeah, Lil something.
Yeah. I tried to get Orc to explain to me why Lil is so popular. To me, because you know, you always think of rappers, especially the male dominated thing. It's like a macho thing, right?
Right.
Machos. So why is Lil? Because Lil to me, you know, sounds kind of anti-macho. It sounds like, oh, you know, you're not strong and you're not important and we'll put you in a corner. I just thought Little was kind of like a put down. And yet there's so many rappers that use that.
That's your rap name, according to Kenny.
There's no fucking way I would use that rap name.
Yeah.
Yep. I would definitely not be Lil.
Well, like Little Wayne or Lil Wayne is like a little dude. He's like a tiny person, so that's why.
Yeah, I mean, at least he's calling. Yeah, he's.
And he was like 12 when he started. That's when he got that name.
Oh,
so that's why,
yeah. See, that makes sense for him, but there's still others. They just.
Why would you copy it? I mean, why would you? I'm coming out. I'm gonna be Lil, barbecue.
Who was that weird? Like he was a white guy, and he's already dead, and he was like tattooed everywhere. He was a little something, wasn't he?
Lil Pete.
Yeah, like what the hell, man? He looked like a goddamn nightmare.
He did. Yeah, he's Post Malone's friend.
So that's why people liked him, and because he's dead too. Now he's dead, everybody thinks he's. Once you die, everybody thinks your music is way better than it was. No, yeah. I don't even know his music, so I'm not saying. And as I said, I am not fit to judge rap music. I am not fit because, as I've said, like when you hear like after school specials or, I don't know, like made up garbage for movies rap, I understand that it's bad, but I can't differentiate it too much from like legitimately good. Like it doesn't sound that different to me. Let's go, are you kidding? But no, it sounds very similar. But
anyway. My name is Cole, and I'm here to say I'm about to rap rhymes in a different way.
A rip rap?
Rip.
A rip rap? What does it do? Yeah, there it is. That was actually a pretty good sketch on SNL. The old school rappers.
Yeah.
These all these women rapping about their bottoms and such is wrong. We used to rap about high top sneakers and having a good time on the radio. Yeah. And that's actually the rap I like best. I missed that early innocent 80s rap where it was all just about having fun and chilling with your homies. In the 90s, shit got dark with the gangster rap, right? It's all just about killing people and fucking bitches.
Mm-hmm. Still is.
Yeah, that's endured, and that's fine. But yeah, I miss the innocent early rap of the early Run DMC and stuff. I said, a ill reindeer. I like how it's not even an ill reindeer. He says, a ill reindeer. That hurts me every time I hear it. I get it. You shouldn't go grammar police on rap. I get it, but a ill reindeer just sounds insane. And I know that I'm rapping a Christmas novelty. I'm ripping a Christmas novelty song and not like a really legit hit, but that's what I think of because it's in Die Hard, so I hear it every year. Anyway.
Was that Christmas in Hollis, Queens, or wherever?
Yeah, Christmas in Hollis, or however it goes. Yeah. Anyway, speaking of rap, I guess we can wrap up here. We pretty much said the most important stuff to be said about the movie, but I don't know. It's nice to get another animated movie in because we haven't done one in a long time, and we definitely have some more to do in the future, although we try to space things out. But I thought Tekkonkinkreet was good because I just wanted an excuse to watch it again because I hadn't seen it in so long, and it still really holds up. Really like it. And I don't know. I think it stands out a bit. It's kind of not your typical anime. It has a lot of the anime conventions. It has a lot of stuff I think that makes it different too. Plus, it's just like a feast for the eyes. It's so visually splendid. I love Treasure Town. I love how it looks. I love all the layers. I love how they put all the different Asian city elements together into one place. The story's not amazing or anything, but it's a good story with good, memorable characters that stand out from each other. But yeah, the visual aesthetic and the sound. And one little final note, speaking of it, is I love the end credits because it's one of the few movies where I watch the end credits all the way. Because first you get like a shot back to their lot where the flower that he planted finally starts to grow, and then once you get into the other credits, a really good song that I like plays. What the hell is it called? It's called A Town in Blue from Asian Kung Fu, whatever they're called. It's funny, like a Japanese band, they're actually called Asian Kung Fu something. But anyway, here it is. Asian Kung Fu Generation. There's some of it. I don't know how loud that is for people. That might be like blaring. But yes. I remember I loved this song. I used to play it all the time.
That's a good song.
But yeah. So that plays over the credits. So I was listening to it. I actually have a couple of their other songs too. They're a pretty good band. So yeah, that's my I guess the final wrap on Tekkonkinkreet, a manga that I'll have to eventually pick up before it goes out of print or something. I don't think it'll go out of print. It's still fairly popular. The movie's well known. But anyway, that'll finish this up for now. So that was Tekkonkinkreet, plus a little bit of an intro where we talked about some of the movies we saw for 2019. Although obviously we'll have more to say on those as we go forward. And I'm hoping, as I said before, I hope we can get last week. I kind of miscalculated, which is why we didn't have it, because I was trying to do something and I did it wrong. And it has to do with construction on my building, which is still ongoing, which is getting closer and closer to like right at where I am. And it's going to drive me crazy, but I don't think that's going to get in the way next week. So hopefully next week, whether it's like Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever, we can get another show going, because we'd like to get some weeks in a row here. Because as I said, even though we only missed 1 week, it still feels like a really long time since we did this. So yeah, hope we get to doing this a little bit more consistently and often. So anyway, that will do for tonight and this episode, but we'll be back hopefully very soon, hopefully next week, with the next episode of the Movie Discussion Pocket Dimension. So that will be all for now. So thanks very much for watching. That is Jason, and I am Cole. I'm reading, we call him Jay, but he wrote Jason there, so Jason. And so thanks very much, and we'll see you all next time. Peace out. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.